welcome. He said, go to your happy place. I was just like that.
Third meeting of City Council, Washburn for Monday, March 11th, 2019. Roll call.
Barnes.
Here.
Gary. Austin.
Here.
Mazias.
Here.
McGrath.
Here.
Novichok.
Here.
Oswald.
Here. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is approval of monthly expenditures. Their motion to approve.
So, Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of the monthly expenditures that have been reviewed. Second.
So roll call.
Oswald.
Yes.
Novichok.
Yes.
McGrath.
Yes.
Mazias.
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Gary. Barnes.
Yes.
Next will be public comment. But before we begin our public comment portion, I have a few things to say. I know there are very strong opinions regarding an agenda item tonight for potential housing plan. I've heard many comments both for and against the idea. I believe people who have varying positions on this matter all have what they think is the best in mind for our city. Please respect those ideas that differ from yours. It's okay to disagree. At times, some of the comments have been highly charged. Regardless of what decision may be made, I have a high degree of confidence that Tuesday will follow Monday, and that Washburn will not cease to exist if a decision is made that differs from your opinion. And before we begin, I want to say that the newspaper column I wrote about the housing plan had an error that I take full responsibility for. The amount of taxes that are projected for this project will be approximately $40,000 more or less, not $140,000. I tried to make the correction for the paper, but it was too late. I stand before you tonight to say I'm not perfect, I made a mistake. I'm very sorry for this, but the concept that the property will be producing revenue for the city that the city needs and does not have still stands. So when you come up to speak, please keep on the topic. Please refrain from making accusations in your comments. Respect the opinions of others. Please refrain from making any personal attacks. And speaking of this, I'm aware of and have received comments regarding my involvement in this that I consider to be unfounded and impugn my integrity. I'm deeply insulted by these comments and believe you have crossed over the mark. I am all for discussing ideas and policies, but these personal attacks are out of line. In doing so, you've created an atmosphere that has severely jeopardized the possibility of future constructive engagement between me, the mayor of Washburn, and you and whomever you represent. In keeping with our policy of many years, for public comment, you have allowed 3 minutes. You're allowed 3 minutes time. This is to allow others the ability to speak and allow City Council to conduct the business of tonight's agenda. When you come up to the podium, please sign your name and address on the sheet provided, and then please clearly state your name and address and speak into the microphone. And before we begin, we have received many emails pro and con on this issue, plus several letters pro and con, and a petition signed by 79 individuals against the moving out proposal. So if anyone would like to come up to the podium, please step up. No one wants to speak tonight? Okay. Okay. Wait, he's going to turn the microphone on.
I'm Deanna Yost. I'm the owner of North Coast Coffee. But before that, I was many years in a nonprofit program. I actually went out one of the developers up to the area to present what they do, and I really believe in them. And I really do like the idea of housing. However, and this is a but, I do also see a lot of other potential for the piece of property. And I'm hoping that we can just slow down on the process and have a think about it and talk about it and look at other things that we can do besides that housing development here. And I can tell you that I have such a deep respect for business owners since I moved from the nonprofit world to the for-profit. what business owner, and what makes it and breaks it here in this town, and how much we depend on tourism, and how much we depend on what's going on in town. So anyway, I just wanted to put that forth. I'm part of the very informed Washburn Business Alliance, and I've been getting a lot of information from them that caused me to rethink my ideas about that property. So I just wanted to say that tonight. So that's it.
Thank you.
I'm Richard Olson Jr., local businessman, and I've had a dream about that use of that land for 30 years. The thing I listened to that the council says, what else? I mean, there's no other ideas, but that isn't to me a reason for developing a piece of land because there's no other ideas. There are other ideas, but if you were to look at that map or a picture of that area, there's no city planner that I'm aware of that would ever stick housing between the main street and a potential that it's the only potential on the lake shore to have the marina and its amenities developed up into the town. And one of my dreams has been to connect the main street to the lake, because we've been a horizontal town. We've been 4 blocks from the lake, and it's the jewel. It's the thing that would draw people to this town. So by sticking 2 blocks of housing in what I consider to be the main corridor from this very setting into that setting down there, really blocks any development that somebody with money on the lower side might decide to do. The other thing is, I've looked at that lake, and we've grown a bunch of brush between us and the lake. We used to be able to see the lake from 4th Street. And it's because of that reason. We just don't open ourselves to it. I love to look at it every morning I go to work. I realize housing doesn't block it entirely, but if you remember 10, 15 years ago, a developer wanted to develop that entire Pullman Lakeview Drive, and they wanted to do it with, I think, 12, 16-foot garage doors with a 2-story housing that was attached to the garage door. And it got turned down for similar reasons. I know, but I was against that at the time. I'm in the building field. I would like to be interested in furnishing materials. But I think we can come up with a better idea for the use of those 2 blocks, that we invite people down. And there's never been housing there. And I look at the map and I go, how can you put a row of housing between some businesses that are trying to survive on Main Street and preclude people that are coming along the street from seeing the lake? The lake is the jewel, and this is our first opportunity to open it to it. I don't want to I have nothing against the housing. There may be a need for it, but that is not the place for it. It should be sprinkled in the rest of the community where we live. And I realize there's reasons that isn't so, because this is set up for the kind of development you're interested in doing, or at least expressing interest in doing, to make it more affordable, more easy for the developer. But to me, I stand on my point. I don't want that land used for housing. There's a Washburn Business Alliance. We're trying to come up with ideas that would be a better use for it. And they don't make any more or less sense than what is being proposed, because what's being proposed isn't turning a bunch of dollars for the city's sake. That's the other crux of it. So I'm opposed to the use of the land. I'm not opposed to the housing part, but it leaves a task of trying to find where to put that kind of housing. And I don't know how far you people have dug into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm assuming you're not going to open the floor very long.
That's up to city council. I hope they will.
There has been a lot of misinformation out there, and I think that before the city council acts in any manner, you really need to know what it is that you're voting on. When I go back and look at the Move It Out proposal that they made in January, I did some calculations. I asked the Porter at that time, what's the taxation for units? He said it's between 800 and 900. You take that out to 40 units, that's 36,000 a year. Now, that 36,000, that's going to be part of the tip. So we won't actually see it outside the tip until it expires, and I believe that's in 17 years. It's in 2035. So you see that 36,000, we don't actually get that actually. After 2035, we get about 45%. So ultimately, in 17 years, the city will collect roughly 16,000. So I asked for some confirmation on those numbers. I haven't heard anything back from the city on it, but I'm assuming they're correct. There's a lot of issues with regard to how this process is going on that I take this with. One is that the timeline that we're on here, we had a few citizens show up in December. This January, then we had the presentation by Mr. Porterfield. We had the RFQ issue, and then that was due about a month later. Not surprisingly, there was only one proposal. So at this point, we don't really have many options to look at tonight. And I don't know if we're on step number 2 or number 3, but we're on this real tight timeline. Why? Because the sole applicant to the process is on a tight timeline for grants. Well, I don't think the city should be rushing into a timeline that's based upon some developers. It should be on the city's time, not anyone else. So I'm asking that the city first stop, because when we rush to make decisions, we make mistakes. We've done that. I sent a letter to you all earlier, about a month ago, with mistakes that have been made. And a lot of those, frankly, have been done because the due diligence hasn't been paid attention to before the action is taken. And with this project, if a mistake is made, you can't go back and tinker with it, like what we're doing with the zoning permit. I think there's a zoning correction on tonight's agenda. So you've got to get it right. This is something that is going to be permanent to the city, and we need to take our time. It also needs to involve the general public, because at this point, we have not had the public involved. The one time that we did have the public involved, it was during the comprehensive planning. And if you look at the comprehensive planning, the people who responded about what they wanted to see did not want to see this at the development time. So I don't know why we're rushing to do that. There are other options. There's 3.5 acres for sale up on Washington Avenue that had utilities right on it. So why don't we look at some other options as to where this might actually fit in the community? In terms of the other costs to the city, the development is asking for about $300,000 in TIF funds. That is in their proposal, is in their slide. I can get it out if you want to see it. If they want $300,000, is that all that's going to be in the TIF funding? I don't know. Are we going to need to improve the sewer system? Last summer, when we looked at 6 units of housing, it was said that we need to upgrade the lift station down there. Is that going to happen? If so, what's the cost going to be? I don't know. So the other thing I want to bring out here is that they're proposing 40 units. That's because that's where they hit their economy of scale. Not that we need 40 units and all together in that high density, but that's where they hit their economy of scale. I did the calculation based upon the 2010 census, and roughly that's 4% of the city's housing in terms of households. So if we apply that same ratio to Madison, this would be equivalent to the developer going to the city of Madison asking for 4,300 units. That's a massive amount in relation to what we already have. And I think it's way too much. I frankly think that the city should start small, perhaps have a couple of 8 classes. With respect to the amount of rent that is being charged here, there are income limits. And the amount that they are charging for rent is actually going to be higher than market rate. If they hit at anything above the 50% of the county median income. So we really need to look at what they're going to be charging for rent too, because I don't think that it fits with what the city needs. I really would ask that the city stop the proposal. Let's have some community involvement. Let's find some alternative locations for housing, not against the housing, not the least bit against housing. But let's find a developer who's willing to perhaps build fewer than 40 units. And let's get it out there as to what the city wants, what the citizens want, and have something that actually everyone can be happy with and can live with. And we do need to get the facts out there straight. I understand that you, Mr. Ray, don't like that I brought out your friendship with Mr. Porter, but that has to be brought out. That means it's a process.
I've never hid that.
Well,
Your time is up. 3 minutes are up. We've already had.
Yeah, I know. That's
Your 3 minutes are up. Actually, I did before. Other people have a chance to speak. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Please step forward.
Hi, good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. My name is Ralph Edwards. and I-
Sign in, please.
Pardon?
Sign in, please.
This is first.
Our strict administrator asked me.
Okay, good, thank you. And also on the same lines of putting things in writing, as always, I've left copies of the script, the story I'm about to read to you, and also, of course, for each of you.
You can pick those up. 7 minutes. You have 3 minutes, Rob.
Thanks, Richard. I don't know if I'll make it in 3 minutes, but you can let me know. You can do the drawing material back. Excuse me, I've been reading a lot of dusting and construction work. So, okay, wasting time on my 3 minutes. But however, I believe I would be making a mistake. Number one, if I didn't start, I think in the past, especially Councilors McGrath and Messias, for their work over the years of championing our bookend parks, number one, and also for recently saving our CODA. And more recently, for procuring needed funds to repair and maintain the docks at Western Park, and as well as the bulwarks. Now, these are components of economic development in Western. So by my estimation, you're doing some things very well. I just want to start by commending you for those. Also, I want to commend the mayor. Thank you for putting things in writing, number one. And I would encourage more people to do this. I would very much like a copy of that last speaker's speech. I always do this, put things in writing. Why? Because then you can refer back to it. But I want to commend Mayor Abel for his tools of civility. And I would recommend you take them to the door of the city council. Okay, distribute them, get them out. We need these rules. I'm not going to read this speech. Other people here have things to say. I have put it in writing to you. I do want to say that I'll just read 2 paragraphs here. With your blessing. I don't see the matter in front of us today as one for or against subsidized housing. You'll find no argument from me with the general premise of the business model employed by Moving Out Inc. I graduated high school thanks in part to the school lunch program. I graduated college thanks to funding such as work study, federal grants, and low-interest loans. Likewise, each of these sitting on council owes the president's staff partly perhaps a similar incentive, ones that help people elevate their careers. Yes, affordable housing is needed. As somebody who has faced financial hardships, I stand with the ones who favor housing for a suitable Boston location. But I do not favor it for these thin swing acres that are a centerpiece of Boston's waterfront district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Would you please sign your name and speak your name and address?
Well, I'll start off my name is Marcus Warren, probably not the greatest at these things, but nice to see you folks tonight. I just want you guys to deeply consider, the people in the community and to think about utilization. Let's utilize this property and make some income to help our city. My understanding is you guys are gonna have a 20-year TIF on this, if that's my understanding correctly. So where does that income come in with that 20 years to the city? It doesn't. We're not utilizing the property the right way. So I'm just asking you guys to maybe ask the citizens of the town, how do you guys feel about the situation? Or is there a better offer on the table? I mean, for $1 is my understanding. You need two, I got $2 right now. I'll buy it and make sure there's over $150,000 of income in 20 years. I mean, this is like a no-brainer thing here. I don't even know why this is a discussion on the table. There's plenty of acreage out there for land for other kind of development that we won't see any proceeds for and not benefit the city in any kind of way. Let's put them in that direction. Still to benefit the city in 20 years, but not on the lakefront property where we can have something come in and be utilized to benefit our city and make us grow, rather than keeping us all stuck here on the minimal pay grade with, taxes through the roof. My understanding is we're in the state of Wisconsin for the highest, taxes here in the city. That's ridiculous. So I'm just asking you guys to, basically reconsider your situation and ask the community's guidance and let's do something for this place instead of let's wait 20 years. Because if that's the case, you guys want to put it back up for sale for 20 years. I guarantee somebody buys it before then. So thank you guys and appreciate you giving me a chance to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? No one else? Yeah. Oh, wait.
Hi, Seth Foster. First of all, thank you all for your service. I know, I acknowledge that the only time a bunch of people come here probably when they complain about something, so you've got the hard job. Fine. Thanks for complaining. But two things. First of all, it seems like we have a lot of buildings in town that need something to be done with them, and I realize that financially, the price per unit for giving people housing looks good when you put up 40 units that are built by a developer, but it seems like there's a lot of buildings in town that need to be used. So it's hard for me to swallow building a bunch of new buildings when we've got a bunch of new people. The second thing is, I know it doesn't seem like that way now, like a lot of businesses are leaving, but I have to believe that in the future, people in this world are going to be looking for a place to live. There's a lot of places that are not going to be inhabitable in the future. That's my belief. And this is an amazing place. And it's beautiful. And I think if we can be patient and develop it in a conscious way, I think it can be a really amazing place to live. And we can hold this lake and this place as a place that represents our value. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Becky Sue Nielsen. I'll sign in after I talk. And thank you all for opening up public comment for this agenda item. comments are precious. And I think we need to make sure that all community members have an opportunity to be at the table when we're talking about doing something irrevocable with the public comment. And so I think that at least a public hearing, if not a subcommittee of not just council members, but also people of the community. Because the comments are important and they're shrinking. And we should have a say in how they're developed. And that's what I would like to see happen, is a formal public hearing and then maybe putting together a committee of interested parties to really brainstorm about how to move forward. Plus, I think Washburn is still an eco-municipality. And so in the proposal for the development, I just did a cursory read, so forgive me if I missed it, but I didn't see a lot of talk about the green concepts, sustainability, what kind of materials are they using, what are they doing for runoff, what's the parking lot going to look like, is it going to be semi-permeable, these types of things. When the city council is making decisions now, as an municipality, there are certain criteria and certain things that you need to consider and demand that the people developing or working in the city also consider. And I haven't seen a real thorough examination of that. And that really needs to be a part of city council every decision, if you're going to call yourself an municipality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Anderson. I just hope that we can open the floor for discussion later. There's many things people would like to discuss. And I think it's important to do so because 3 minutes is not going to be. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Anyone else like to speak? Please step forward. Sign your name and speak your name and address, please.
My name is Thomas Schultz. I'm the owner of North Coast Coffee. But also, we own a home, a single-family dwelling home that's that's for a handicap fund. As some of you may know or not know, in the 80s, I was part of a nonprofit housing program to build 20 units in Washington. 3 or 4 of those are outside the city limits, but a bulk of them were in town. A program developed some sewers and put some water use part of the project. I'm also part of the Business Alliance, and I've been looking at this since it came back to light since January. I guess trying to keep an open mind, but also looking at that site and knowing that once it's gone, it's gone. It's something that we cannot reproduce or replicate. I think it's something that needs a lot of community involvement. All stakeholders need to be at the table. And I think the city and the residents need to move forward smartly. And like was said before, not everyone may be happy, but at least it should be a consensus, and it should be what's best for the city and looking down the road, not 5 years, but 20 years. And I hope the council will take all that into consideration before they make their decision. Thank you.
Anyone else? Last call. Okay. I forgot to have the approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the city council minutes of February 11th, 2019.
I'll make the motion.
Second. All in favor? Any corrections or additions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the mayoral announcements. First, I'd like to announce there are vacancies on the park board and the zoning board of appeals And on the Harbor Commission. On the Harbor Commission, you must be a resident of Washburn for 3 years. Next, I'd like to say this is our Assistant City Administrator Dan Stolten's last City Council meeting. He'll be leaving soon to be a city manager in Colorado. And we'll sorely miss his help and assistance. And best of luck. And then I'd like to make a proclamation. Whereas it is acknowledged that the city of Washburn is a community made up of its outstanding citizens, and whereas the city of Washburn has and will continue to rely upon the robust public participation of its citizens, and whereas the city of Washburn wishes to thank one of its longest residents whose involvement assisted many organizations, including the Forest Service, the Beautification Committee, the library, the ABC, and the jewelry store she owned belonged to her husband Harold, among other activities. Therefore, I, Richard Abel, Mayor of Washburn, do hereby declare March 16, 2019 as Izzy Moe Day in honor of her 100th birthday. Please join me in wishing Izzy, as she is known, happy birthday. Thank you. Next, we'll have a public hearing discussion on ordinance 19-003, amending Chapter 3 Land Use Map of the comprehensive plan as indicated to change 2 parcels from planned waterfront special development to marina. Scott, do you have any comments on this issue? Oh, excuse me, the public hearing, excuse me. We have open the floor for the public hearing on this.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the public hearing is open for this item. Is there anyone who can speak to this item on the marina building? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the floor for the public hearing?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Sorry. Scott?
I'm happy to answer questions. It's pretty self-explanatory. In that the marina buildings are currently non-conforming. This would make them conforming. So if they're going to be destroyed by natural causes or anything like that, they could be reconstructed.
What brought this? I'm just wondering if there was something that brought this forth, or is it just we caught it?
The Harbor Commission had a discussion regarding this matter and had also discussed with the owners of the storage buildings. They're concerned that this is a profit generator for the marina. If the storage buildings out there would adversely impact the income of the marina as well. So they had requested that this change be made. This was a change that was purposely done when the zoning code was considered. So this would be going back and making that correction, or but changing that stance that the storage building should not be non-conforming, but should be a conforming structure in that area.
You remember, Scott, the reasoning behind making it mixed use? So mixed use waterfront buildings like that would not be allowed. Is that correct?
Yes.
So was the thinking that 3 big storage buildings we'll live with, but we don't want more development like that? I think that was the thinking, correct?
Correct.
So now if we make those marina, does that open up the avenue for 6 or 8 or 10 people who are concerned about blocking the view with housing, but structures like that and like the dock construction building is going to be about 3 stories. Those kind of buildings block the view as well. So will this change that and open up more permission space, more space for more large multi-story?
This would only affect those current parcels with the 3 buildings that are right there.
And this was presented to the Plan Commission. they unanimously approved it.
Yes.
There was a question of including Pro Beach when they did discuss it at the planning commission, and they saw no reason to do it, add that in. One of my questions is, could they, if they were to rebuild this, in terms of height again, like say like one of those structures, like the blue one is taller than the other one. It's like, you know, is there any height restrictions? Would we open it up to like expansion? That's pretty much what we're doing. If it's a conforming use, we can make it larger and perhaps taller.
I can't answer exactly off the top of my head what the height restrictions of the Marina District are. Those are subject. If you don't like what those are, whatever they may be, I think that's up to that. They can be amended as well.
And that's really why I asked why this came about. If it was like they're looking at restructuring or doing something, or if it just came about because non-conforming use that something happened that they would like to replace them. Sounds like it's the latter. That's all the questions I have.
Make a motion, we approve the ordinance change to the land use map of the comprehensive plan, so that'd be ordinance 19-003.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes. Next item is discussion on conditional use amendment request for contractor yard and personal storage facility for all temp heating and cooling. Amendment will address exterior facade and architectural changes from the previously approved plan. Property located at 330 South First Avenue. Jeff Pipcraft, petitioner, who is here in the audience, if you have questions for Mr. Pipcraft.
Perhaps, I have a question for Mr. Pipcraft.
Step forward, please.
Perhaps I was looking through this, and what I'm not clear on is the change, the colors, or are there other changes other than the colors? The materials are the same,
Right.
correct?
Yep.
So it's just the colors. You went from gray and
Steel on the. This is just going to be same color.
oh, instead of the stone. Lower.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, the lower portion. So
Yep.
the whole thing will be steel instead of steel 2/3 and then a stone on it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'll just report that the plan commission did discuss this. I believe we approved it unanimously. We didn't have any problem with this.
So is there a motion to approve this?
Yes, I make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
There's a question, the last item about the height, and both the mixed-use waterfront and the marina have a maximum height of 45 feet on their buildings. So that change would not allow a building to be built taller.
The next item is discussion and action on conditional use request for home occupation, operate a private practice counseling/meditation service in accordance with regulations of 8-536 of the property located at 877 Jackson Road. Carol Kuba, petitioner, who is here in the audience tonight. If you have questions for Ms. Kuba. Is there a motion to approve this action, or Scott to give comment amendment? This also was presented to the Plan Commission, who voted, then if you don't mind, they voted unanimously to approve this request. Is there a motion to approve by the City Council?
So moved. Second.
Second. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Have your approval, Mr. Next is a discussion action on request to amend water and sewer credit policy. Sharon Sandstrom, petitioner, and on an amendment proposed by staff. It's in your binder, tab 4. Anyone like to, Scott, did you want to make a comment on this?
This is just a follow-up from the discussion we had at the last meeting. We had discussed a proposal to make the water and sewer dollar amounts proportional to one another based on the volume rate for each. So that change is in here. So if 500 is the standard for sewer, that would make water reach well.
How would you like to proceed?
If someone's bill is $312 over the average for the last X number of quarters, right? That would be the cutoff for the water charge.
Correct.
So if the bill is usually $70 for water and now it's $390. Right? Then that would be based on that's more fair.
There's a draft amendment policy in this packet. Is there a motion to approve this policy?
I motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
Is the change, wasn't it an and before? And now it's a or between the two? Am I wrong?
They're treated separately.
But they weren't before, correct?
They were, yes.
They were, okay,
That's how we had applied them.
okay.
Did you want to make any alterations, Jen?
No, I mean, I think I was the one that kind of tried to talk through this at the last meeting, trying to figure out a way to make it a little bit more equitable and try to figure it out. I mean, I don't think there's a perfect solution for this. I think this is better. I don't know. I did the best I did at the last meeting. So thank you for putting it on paper.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next is discussion and action on respondent to Omaha Development RFQ and the next steps. Before we begin, I have one more thing to say. Tonight's agenda item presents a very difficult and divisive concept for Washburn, as many have made strong comments on the topic. To inform those that may not be aware of the circumstances, the area has been for sale for quite a while. It was sold once, but the city got it back. I won't go into the details of that situation. It is not germane to this topic before us. When the city got the land back, our city administrator informed us that it would that as we see great difficulties in establishing our budget every year, and the rate of growth in Washburn has been very slow, resulting in slow and continuous cuts to our budget. It would be in the city's best interest to get this property in private hands and on the tax roll. At that time, I thought of an old friend of mine who works for a company that does property development. That friend is David Porterfield, who works for Moving Out. I've never hid my connection to him. Moving Out has had a 25-plus year history doing developments using tax credits to offset costs, but then must supply housing at reduced rates. There are many other companies that do a similar type of tax credit-based development. Moving Out is a bit different due to their mission statement, which focuses on efforts on behalf of people with disabilities, veterans, and seniors. Some other companies are strictly general for-profit driven entities. Neither are bad, it's just the way they conduct their business. Moving Out has been here a few times with their proposal. No deal has been made with the city. The tax credits they seek are very competitive and based on a scoring system set up by the state, which grades several elements. Location is a very important one. It is a project within close walking distance from city shops, library, etc. The Omaha Street property is the only one large enough to fit the 40 units that would make this project viable. If the project is moved to another area, it's felt there would be insufficient points so that the project would not receive the required credits and thus would not be built. And with that, I leave it up to City Council to make a decision on what they'd like to see, and I would encourage you to open the floor for public comment if you so wish. How would you like to proceed? Yes, Aaron.
Can I ask a question? Just because there's been a couple of comments about the tax revenue, that $40,000 mark, whether it's this. Scott, could you clear that up for anyone that's confused by that?
Start with, we don't know exactly how much tax revenue would be generated by what has been discussed. We have no specific proposal on the table. We're not that far along yet. And based on what has been kind of thrown out there by moving out, we anticipate it would be somewhere in the $40,000 neighborhood. We get 36, or give or take a few $1,000s. That's about the best we can project at this point. We know that it would be a taxable development. It's going to be based upon largely the revenue generated on the property. Any housing development of housing complex of 4 units or more is based on the revenue that it generates. That's how the assessor will do it. Now, I'm not an assessor. I can't tell you all those details about doing it, but that's how that works. The question was brought up, well, what happens because this is in a TIF? Well, because it's in a TIF, and we would have approximately 15 years, maybe 14 years, depending on when construction would actually occur, of collecting all of the tax revenue generated on it. So all of that 36, 40,000, whatever that number is, the city would collect. So, well, what can we do with that money? Well, we don't know at this point if there would be any costs. Now, I know it was mentioned that there was a $30,000 or $300,000 request. Well, no request has officially been made of the city at this point. That is all subject to negotiation yet. We haven't gotten that far. In the past, they have said that they would be requesting cash assistance from the city. But we would have to enter into an agreement to do so, and we don't know exactly how that would be structured yet. So there's a lot of details on that we can't answer. Ideally, for the city, if the city would move ahead with this project, we would seek to minimize the amount of cash assistance that the project would get that would benefit the city. We'd want this to be a TIF positive project so that we would generate revenue within our TIF district so that we can utilize those dollars for other projects. That is the ideal situation. And any project within our TIF project plan is eligible. So improvements to the park, improvements to that other portions of that property for public improvements, those are all fair game. And those tax dollars could be applied to that development. And that is a strategy that the city has employed for years. All of the improvements, for example, a lot of the improvements that we've done at the marina, those are utilizing TIF dollars that the city has positively generated and for public improvements so that we can stretch those with grant dollars so that we can accomplish some of this infrastructure improvement that is necessary. So that's how that would work. We don't know at this point whether or not there would need to be any sort of utility improvements because we don't know the layout of the property. We have no specific site plan that has been proposed or presented. So that is all up for debate and discussion. That would, if we decide that we want to actually move forward, that would have to be, they would have to come back and make a formal proposal of what they want. We have to go back and forth and discuss. So tonight, if you're inclined to think that you are interested in this and would like to move forward, one of the things you can do is say, you know, I like the possibility of using part of this property, you know, this corner or that corner. They had thrown out that they are interested in about 3 to 4 acres of our total approximate 10 acres that are available. That's also subject to discussion and negotiation. It if it's multi-story or multi-story, you could shrink that footprint. There are possibilities. We have discussed whether or not the broke down is a possibility. That was stated at the January meeting. There's a lot of details that have to be worked out, but that is a possibility to put some of the units there to further reduce that footprint. So there are options available that could be done. But we don't have a specific site plan to debate at this time. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and also so because of the TIP district, are all developments under that same tax revenue, or is it contingent on the cost of construction? Or is this special to this type of development?
Are you asking the taxation on the property
Yeah, like
taxes?
if yes, exactly. So if you were to, tax revenue, is it always, contingent on the cost that we, or is it just this type of cost development? Like if other development was put there?
Revenue generated, let me start over. How properties are assessed is completely separate from a TIP. The TIP is simply a tool to allow us to utilize the tax dollars collected for a specific purpose. The city has control over those dollars, and we are free to use those dollars as long as they are put towards an eligible project or expense. That is what TIP is. How properties are assessed, that is a completely different set of rules, and that is controlled by the assessor. There's no difference in taxation because of a TIP. Someone who is in a TIP district would have no idea that they're actually in a TIP district. It makes no difference on their tax bill.
The use of the funds, though, would have the same restrictions no matter what is developed.
Correct.
Karen?
Just to be clear, hypothetically, if it is $40,000 on an annual basis for 15 years, is that correct? And correct so far, hypothetically?
Hypothetically.
Then we're talking the potential of $600,000 over the life of 15 years that could be used for TIP projects. Hypothetically.
I believe that math is correct.
Okay, yes. Just wanted to be sure of that. So that is an annual 40,000.
Correct.
If that is the amount, or 36 or 35.
I think the concern about the taxes on the property, and correct me if I misunderstood, would be because the rents vary and the rents are not at full market. So that let's say this was a full cost 40-unit deluxe apartment, and every apartment was renting at $1,400 a month. Then their property tax payment would be higher. Is this correct?
That would be
So
correct.
then if you have some apartments at $300 a month, some at $600, some at $1,200, that adjusts the property tax. I think that's what people are thinking about, maybe. I don't know. Okay.
But hypothetically, or it's 40 with those adjustments in place.
Exactly.
Or 36.
Yeah.
Or 35.
In that ball.
You're correct.
Okay.
Yes, Mary?
I would defer to you, Richard. I have a statement to make. I don't know whether to make it
You'll-
now
Just say whatever you like.
beforehand. I opened my remarks with my history of voting for the expansion of Stage North that included a parking lot. I also voted for residential development with confidence that developers would come. But time has been kind to us, possibly, and we all now have the opportunity to look forward with a new eye, discussing the Omaha property here. I recently saw a news report that Duluth was $1.2 million over expected tourism dollars just 5-6 weeks ago. I'm not saying we will see those kind of numbers, but Duluth saw growth in tourism by bringing things to the lake starting in the 90s. It's been noted that lakefront, lakeview, lake access in public ownership has diminished. Why would we give away our lake area as a reaction to what we perceive we need now? We are in control of what we want to see on the Omaha property. I would hate to react to what's been offered now for what we could have in the future. We don't need to be reactive, but think long and hard about the future. A decision now would cause irreversible damage to possibilities. This property may be the thing that makes Washburn a destination for the future in a form not even thought of yet. The lake is our now. It is our future. Historically, we voted against a similar building along Lakeview Holden Drive that was under a referendum. I believe the Omaha property is the last jewel we own for development. We must be thoughtful and patient. A decision on Omaha is permanent and should be treated with that kind of importance. Figuratively, Omaha property may very well be our money in the bank.
Can you turn on the map so you can see the I want to have the map so you can see which property exactly we're speaking about.
While we're doing that, I just echo Mary's sentiment. I've been talking to a lot of folks in the community. I understand. They often talk about the possibilities of this piece of property, and I think we all understand that we have gotten a lot of those market analysis done, but I believe that there's, I think I've been pretty consistent in my remarks here in council and my feeling on this property, and that I feel like I have no issues with housing, low income, or other housing going into Washburn. I'm just, I'm not supportive of that location.
Sorry. Okay.
I can. And
So you can delineate
the little,
cursor.
there's a rod over there, that you can point with as well. If I can just start by pointing out the area that we had identified for potential development in this. It includes a number of properties. Just to give everyone an orientation, here are our 3 marina storage buildings that we have just discussed with the property for Pearl Beach. This is the former county forestry building,
Which is privately owned.
Here we have the Harborview Event Center hotel down here. There is currently an 8-plex at this location. So the properties that the city owns, we have a narrow strip here. So basically all of this currently vacant land within what we call the Omaha block is what we include. In addition, we do have this parcel over here, which extends over to Washington Avenue. You'll note this is where the ATV snowmobile trail goes through the city. We also have the power lines near this facility as well.
So this property is for sale. It has been for sale for a while. Originally, when Moving Out came, they looked at this property and said, where would be the best place from their point of view to build their structures? And they had said up here, which has caused a great deal of discussion on Central and Omaha. Since then, I've spoken with them and said, well, is it possible to condense that? And they said, certainly. But instead of, they'd have 2-story buildings, which is a possibility. As I mentioned in my statements, being close to our main street is important to them. I said to them, what if you built your units along here, Second Avenue, and here, behind the existing apartment building. So there's an apartment building there now. It'd be here and here. is that something you might be able to do? And they said, absolutely. You have to take a closer look, but that is acceptable. That is, then would leave this whole area open for anything else that might come along. Now, for those of you who might be against any type of residential development whatsoever, whensoever, of course, this would not be suitable to you. For those of you who might not want to see any type of development, who might block the Lakeview, well, I accept that, and this would be out also. But we have existing structures there. We'd just be adding to what's sort of already there. There's an apartment building there, having one here, and something there. So that is a possibility. I'm just throwing it out there to try to make a compromise of what I've been hearing people saying, I don't want it over here blocking the view going down to the marina.
Well, the last time that moving out was here, I asked a very specific question on acreage because they were talking about going down, across Omaha Street. And I asked about condensing it. And the reply at that time was, well, we thought that the housing and the garages and the way it fit in to your community better than some of those other structures that he had pointed out. And so I guess this is the first time that I've heard that we're going to be more open to a different type of development. Because when I asked that question specifically at the last council meeting with him, when everyone was here, I mean, I didn't think I got a very positive response of kind of trying to shrink it in a little bit.
That's because he was envisioning, and he said, it's open to whatever the city is interested in. It's up to city council to decide what you want to have happen.
Okay.
If you're against it, I agree, I accept that entirely.
No, I'm just saying, I asked that and I thought it kind of fell pretty flat.
Well, I've been speaking to Megan Schutte, who's received a message in your package. She's now running this as Dave was trying to retire and out of the area. And she's taken over. And she is okay with it as long as the city is okay with more two-story structures instead of one-story. If you don't want to see that,
No, I'm
it's
just
fine. I just want to say that whatever decision the city council makes, I accept and will not criticize, and we'll move forward to whatever is next. So if you vote against it, okay. But I would like to see a decision made, because last time it was just left hanging. So if this is something we don't want to have happen, okay, let's take it off the table and move on. But I don't think we should have things just keep hanging there. Maybe. Yes, Aaron, please.
Is it Karen?
I said Aaron, I'm sorry. Aaron had his hand up first. I'm sorry, Aaron.
Are there restrictions at all to the privately owned land that's already on site? You don't have, I mean, what is that zone?
Zoning, there's zoning laws.
Is it mixed use still, or is it the same zone as the rest of the property?
Is your question is these two parcels?
Well, no, I mean just the one on the side.
This one, the former forestry building?
Yeah.
To my, it is zone mixed use, and to my knowledge, it is currently unused. So any future use of that property must conform to zoning.
Aaron.
If move out in fact moved on the other side of, whatever that is, Second Avenue or Washington Avenue, and a portion of the eastern side, how many acres would remain in the Omaha property parcel as you currently have outlined it?
It's hard to say exactly.
Well, I mean,
We've got
we have
a
a
site
ballpark.
plan. If we have between 8 and 10 acres, 7 or so, 6 or 7 acres would remain. If they condense it from 4 to 3 or 2, 2 they couldn't do. Maybe 2.5 to 3.
But of the approximate 10 acres, 7 potentially might remain.
Potentially, depends on how it's used.
Uh-huh.
Again,
More than half.
It's more than half. There's no plan, and it's entirely up to city council.
Right, no, I know. Just
what you want to
to
do.
give kind of an idea.
And
more than
not
half.
tonight, we're not deciding on a plan
Right.
at
No, I
all.
understand.
We're deciding whether we want to accept
Mhm.
the concept, move forward on the concept, to develop a plan.
Mhm. Okay.
Yes, Mary?
It's sort of like we don't have a plan, but we're going to vote on, there'll be sort of a plan. There's got to be a plan or not a plan. I like the idea of their flexibility with some options. But I think the crux of the problem for the community right now is the entire Omaha property between Second and Central that the city still holds on to. And I feel for us to sit at the table and move forward with a plan on a piece of property we don't have a real plan for, and the community is screaming for a plan, we need to put ourselves on hold. If we were talking about possibly just Second heading west, but that's already been identified as too small.
They would need in excess of that, they would need part of this.
Right. So if the hot property right now is, again, the Omaha, the 10 acres between Second and Central, to offer up to anyone right now the ability to go in there, I think is premature. When I haven't heard from anyone, actually I've heard from one person. They want the type of housing that's being offered by moving out. Again, we all agree it could be in a different spot. I just can't move forward to envision a plan on a property that's not fully planned out. And there's certainly a problem with the community right now. And that's no plan.
Well, and unfortunately, I think we missed an opportunity because a couple of years ago, we left this hanging. And I think we all walked away going, oh, and I think at that time, if we would have maybe done some visioning and actually like taken it to some like public meetings and had some kind of like working group and came up with some things, I think we'd be in a much better spot. But I feel like I'm exactly where I was 2.5 years ago.
Laura?
What happened 2.5 years ago, I remember, is that was the only proposal we had. So the staff, the council, the Scott and staff beat the bushes and sent the RFQ to, 75 developers across the upper Midwest. Many proposals went out. And again, only Moving Out responded. Plus one other, and I can't remember what was wrong with the other.
They left once they came here.
Oh, they looked and then they dumped us. They left us at the altar. So for the community to understand that it's not as if we haven't looked at other options. No one, I was thinking today, it's a field of dreams for all of us, but no one wants to build on it. It's a hard piece of land to build on. We could just leave it wide open forever. The difficulty is the city's funding. And we need development. And the difficulty is hearing that people want new, affordable, safe, comfortable housing, and our stock is very, very skimpy. And hearing that seniors who want to sell their homes and stay in this area have no place to go. So
Please, we have basically at this point, if the city council speak, I hope they open the floor later.
So
Please respect the city council speak now. That's Jeremy, are we done, Linda? I'm sorry.
yes, thank you.
Jeremy.
And since the last time they heard, that's Cedar Corp did their study after that as well, didn't they? So they came, Moving Out came and made their proposal.
Different design.
Cedar Corp, so then we asked Cedar Corp, like, hey, take a look at this piece of land, tell us what you think. And what they came up with was something similar to this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we didn't do anything. And then, so one thing we could decide tonight is that we could say, we want to see more. We are interested in what you have to bring to us. We're not selling the barn right now. All we could say is, we are interested in what you have to offer. Please give us more details.
I will admit that you can do nothing and wait. That's fine. That's a legitimate possibility. But as Jeremy said, we're not making, we're just potentially looking into the concept further. If you don't want to do that, that's okay also. Yes, Jeremy.
So one responsibility I feel like we have here around this table is that because there have not been other offers presented, I feel it has been advertised very well that this is available. You know, what is our responsibility to the city that here is someone that it seems like could actually make this happen? Is this, if we turn our back once again on them, is this opportunity then gone forever? It seems like nobody else has been able to propose anything here, but moving out does seem to have the potential to actually put something there that would benefit one.
I would just say the response to that, if you turn them down to now, we would put the project off at least 3 to 4 years. Would they be back? I couldn't say, but it's kind of unlikely since you would have turned them down several times. But there are other companies who do the same thing. Yes, Mary.
I guess part of my statement, which maybe didn't come clear, and I'll make it clear, is I was part of selling all, I was on council long enough when I said with the others, sell all the city property. And frankly, I come from the East Coast, and waterfront, water view, water access property sells like crazy. I thought you offer it, they will come. I was wrong. So in here I said, by sheer luck, we are now in a position to take our time. It seems like we've already taken our time, but why not more time? We don't have a fire under our feet. We really don't. We do have a very tight budget. I grant that. We do need new customers on water and sewer, but that should not be the be-all and the end-all reason for us to be so reactive to, yes, only one person that moved forward to us. We can take a breather. We can sit back. We can get a broader picture of what the community feels they want that property to be. And I would move forward with. So what's 3 to 5 years in the scheme of the last 100 and 150? Why the big rush? I would say take a step back, give everybody time here to breathe, and then organize and put together. This would not be the first time we went to the public and had workshops on what to do with property. We did it with the plan for the West End Park. We hired a company, not to say we need to do that again, because we've got qualified people in our community to do that. But we would have a better idea than going back the 10 to 12, 15 years on the old comprehensive plan and squeezing in our most recent zoning updates, which were 3 years in the works. I say step back, take a breather, organize, bring it to the public. We are not in a mad rush. Our doors are not going to close just because we don't do this development. That would be my take.
But this opportunity might go away. Which, so.
And I could live with that. I could live with that because I'd rather err on the side of caution than err on the possibility of the future bringing someone's, and what we've already allowed be irreversible. I would find that hard to bear.
Aaron, sorry, Aaron.
You know, the as far as like the waiting, honestly, we need residents, and it's hard to rent houses. It's very expensive. Rents continue to go up. It's hard to find an open space, and when it is, there's naturally the need is here, and it will be here for 3 to 5 years. And it will grow, in my opinion. If we want new people to come into town and live here, we have to give them places to stay. We have to give them places to live. You know, I don't know. I think that we waited a long time. This place has been open a long time. We've tried to sell it for a long time. I mean, what are we talking about? Are we saying, okay, in 3 years, then we're okay with it? I mean, what are we proposing here? How long are we going to sit and be, wait for something better? It's, as far as affordable housing, this seems like a pretty good deal for Washburn.
I'm sorry.
I see the pros. It provides affordable housing for current residents. It provides housing for future residents. It provides up to $40,000 annually tax revenue, which really then can help develop these waterfront, which, again, if we want people to come here, tourists to come here, we have to develop, but we have zero money to do it. And this would give us some tax revenue to actually start developing and get tourists here. If we want to just stay the same, that's, fine, and we can rely on the tourism here, but I keep on thinking about this growth and development, but we don't have the tax dollars to do it. This would provide that. It provides new construction, so we actually have some wiggle room with Leavenworth. We haven't been able to have like a 1% growth in construction. The cons are wait for something better. Or put in a new park, which, if you don't think we have enough green space in Washburn, I don't know. That's an interesting conversation.
I don't think anybody's saying put in a new park.
Actually, I have.
Actually, I've
Well,
heard
I'm just
that.
saying, we haven't had that discussion here. And I think we're not saying, I think that it's about bringing people into our community. Yes, maybe. Is this 40 units going to be the housing fix? I don't think it's going to, the way that you look at it, yeah, it might bring some different people into our community, but it's not going to fix a lot of the housing that people have been coming to me with. There's not going to have somebody come in and be able to rent that at those different units. It's a pretty low income. And that's okay. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's not going to fix all those different housing issues that have been brought forward to council. From people, from seniors wanting to sell their houses outside of town and move in, it's not hitting those. And I think that we do have a housing problem, perhaps, and I think we can find a different location for that. I think Seth Vassar brought a really interesting issue that we have tons of empty buildings in our community. And yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to maybe fix something up, but maybe we can concentrate on that. I'm just afraid of selling something that could be our future, because really to get people to stop here in our community, the reason people drive by is because they're going up to the Apostle Islands, they're going up to Bayfield that has this lake frontage, this whole vision of the lake. People drive by here, half the time when you tell people about our parks and our walking trail and our campgrounds, they're like, holy cow. And so I think, like, once again, bringing people down to our marina, I think it's an opportunity. And I'm interested in maybe a smaller piece of it and talking holistically with our community about a way to do that. I'm just not willing to rush into it.
Karen had her hand up earlier.
And can I just say, I think I saw someone cup in their ear back there, maybe we could all try to talk into microphones.
I'm going to take a different slant. I guess as I got on the city council, I kind of tried to figure out what's the role of local government. And I decided, and I ran on this, that it was to listen to all the residents. But also those who have limited or no voice in the public square. Those who are poor, those who may be challenged because of a disability, a mental disability, may be elderly, a whole variety. While they may not have organized, they may not be here this evening, they don't have a loud voice. And it appears, and from my standpoint, I think as a city council person, it's my responsibility to also pay attention to those needs. We don't see, I don't think, anyone here in a wheelchair. Pretty hard to get around today with the ice and the slush. But we know from Bayfield County Social Services, in a letter that was written to the council, that weekly they're bombarded, well, maybe not bombarded, but at least to have calls with people who have special needs, who really can't afford the market rate and are looking for housing. And it appears to me that that is, in fact, part of our responsibility as council to be aware that there are many in our community that don't have a lot of voice and may not be here this evening. They're not the only residents, and all of you that are here this evening are important too. It's important to listen. It's important to see, is there some common ground? I think the proposal in terms of potentially moving part of that housing development to the west so that more of the Omaha property is not utilized might be something that would strike a positive note with some in the audience, that maybe 7 acres out of 10 would still be there. That's a pretty big chunk. And it seems to me that tourist-related activities, whatever those are, whether that's a boardwalk down to the coal dock, whether it's picnic tables, a bike path, any number of kinds of things might be able to be utilized on that kind of a parcel. So that's my dilemma. I know that there are many that have spoken, perhaps many that will continue to speak, who say, no, not on Omaha. But if we don't use all of Omaha, if we listen to the voiceless in our community, which I think is partially my responsibility, can't that be a common ground that we could move forward in?
I've heard many different points of view that lead me to believe not everyone is going to be happy regardless of what you do. There are people who say they don't want any type of housing there. There are people who say make it into a big park. There are people who say we should put structures there. Regardless of what happens now or in the future, there will be people against it and people for it. This is a hard decision for city council to conceive. I don't have a vote on this. As mayor, I bring forward ideas to you that are brought to me and that I think might have some validity. It's up to city council to decide. Karen, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the as far as that's why I don't think moving forward at this point is. I mean, obviously, I want to go forward with good faith with moving out, and that we are literally interested in a plan. I don't know what their site plan would look, and we would have considerable control over which parcels we would be willing for them to develop, and I don't see any danger in that because I think. Sometimes it's hard to envision what they're talking about. But without a site plan, like I don't even know what that looks like. I mean, when I look at that part of Omaha that already has housing, like, I mean, it's so hard to say, well, we don't want housing on Omaha when there's already apartments there. I mean, you know,
down here.
Yeah, you know,
That's
so
not,
it's like,
it's in
so
the area.
I know what I'm saying is in that area.
Omaha land, we call it.
So, you know, it's hard for me to say, okay, well, we can't have it at all, you know, when we already have housing. And I will mention, like, we have no idea what's going to go on in that privately owned area. So, you know, to say that the, you know, that the view is going to be blocked, you know, I imagine that's going to be developed. But anyway, so I really think moving forward, it's not a dangerous proposition to go forward and see what kind of site plan can come forward, and we have some considerable control over what that would look like.
If that was just what we were moving forward on, but the thing is the time frame, right? Because if we say we're gonna move forward, they only have a certain amount of time before moving out has to be able to apply for these federal grants. And so I guess that's what I'd like to know a little bit more about, because we talk about like 3 to 4 years if we don't hit this cycle. So when I feel like we say moving forward, I feel like we're making that commitment with this grant cycle. So I think it's a little more than just moving forward and seeing a site plan. That's my concern. If we were moving forward and seeing a site plan and starting to talk about different areas and going there, but we're, I think, committing a little bit more with moving out than that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Hey, Aaron, I just want to say, when you're mentioning this property here, that is an apartment complex,
yeah.
Perhaps there are people who think that's not properly cited. We have to deposit that. In retrospect, that was not a good idea in all fairness. But it is there. Yes, Mary.
I think to the point of all of this piece of property, to move forward, I'm with you, Jen. If we move forward, I feel like we're jumping on the moving out's timeline. It just makes me unsettled. I have not, in all of my years, we've had the cell tower issues and we've had other issues that have brought people to fill this room. But the biggest time and the biggest issues I've ever seen have to do with Lakeview, lake access, like property,
I agree.
right? And so we've dealt with Lakeview Holman Drive, and we did it quite publicly. We heard from the people, we did a referendum, and they voted on it. Now I've heard Omaha Street, and people don't consider that the same as Lakeview Holman Drive. It is in a very real way, because it is the last big chunk of property that the city owns with that kind of view, with the kind of vision Dick has seen for 30 plus years and others. I'm not saying to take out residential. I'm saying right now I feel like there's no really good plan that has asked the community to come and help us with, other than to vote us all to this table to make the best decision. I think this one's bigger than the 7 of us sitting at the table. That's my point with this chunk of property. It's more than just 7 of us.
Jeremy, did you want to speak?
Just real quick, I think it's encouraging that the partnership with Moving Out, I mean, the fact that they're already like, well, where do you want to put it? That they're willing to, they've already listened to some of our concerns and said, yeah, how about over here? So, and we talked about, Karen, you were talking a little bit about, a path going from, that would go alongside it through this property. My guess would be that this is the kind of place this company would say like, okay, yeah, let's talk about it. But maybe not, but nobody else is talking about doing anything there right now. So here we are with a group that's said they were willing to work with anything that were presented. So I'll admit the timeline is tight, but we might be entering into a partnership with a really good, helpful partner here that is willing to hear all of us and be part of it. And it's not like if we vote right here, yes, that it's a done deal. We could say, yes, Moving Out, come on in. They could bring something to us and we could all be like, nope, no way, that's not going to work. But if we say no whatsoever, we'll never know what their idea is.
To address Jen's comments, I want to be candid here. The timeline is such that they need to have time to get together all the documents for the state tax credits, which would go in sometime late in this fall. They will not know whether they get those credits until sometime next year. Now, theoretically, since there's a new administration and the state budget is not set, anything could happen in Madison. So nothing is certain. But I will admit, from my point of view, that if you want to do it out to produce more documents for us, you're saying, in effect, this is a concept that we think is a good concept and a decent, good fit there. If you don't believe that, you shouldn't
Bring them along.
You shouldn't string them along, say no, and let's end it. If you don't like it, okay. But to some extent, if you say, let's keep moving along in this process, you're saying in good faith, we want to try to work something out. Any type of development, you talk first, and you see what you're talking about, common ground. So if that's not what you want to do, okay. Karen, yes.
We've talked a lot about Moving Out, but isn't there another partner in that Cedar Corp that would be actually,
Cedar Corp.
they're not going to be involved? I thought they were.
I don't know what their process is in development.
My understanding is they would basically be the engineering arm of
Right.
Moving Out. They would prepare the actual site plan. They would prepare what utilities, what things would need to change to make the site buildable, those sorts of things.
And that's my point. If we look back in our packet, Cedar Corp has included a considerable amount of information and pictures about the properties that they've worked on. And you see trees, and you see some landscaping, and you see green space. So it's not just, earth and up comes a piece of a building. So I think that we have the potential of working with a group that has some concern about green space. One of our speakers talked about an eco city, and it seems to me that both corporations have talked about materials that they would use, that it would be green, and certainly now pictures can, that's not a guarantee, I recognize, but they look pretty nice to me.
Chairman. And I've heard, and I think legitimately so, heard people say, wouldn't it be great if we had something stopping traffic going through town? Could this be what that is? Could you be driving through and saying, what is that new development down there? I haven't seen that before. I want to go see what that is. Could that be? So I haven't seen any new development, new housing in town in a long time. So could this be the thing that stops people from going back? Could it be the thing that inspires other growth in that area?
Any other? I would encourage you to open the floor.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to
I
open the
make a
floor?
I would second that motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone would like to speak, please step forward and say your name and address, please, and speak into the microphone. You don't have to sign that.
Okay. I'm Jenny Peterson. I live on East Third Street. And I just want to say that I appreciate all the work that's gone into this already. And as I said, listen to all the different sides of the story. There's a lot to consider. And I've been here since 5:30 and I read, the information that was online before it came, and I've been listening to conversations around town. And one thing that's pretty clear is that whatever decision is made, some people will be happy and some people won't. And so, as council members, when I think about who I want to represent me on the council, it's somebody who's going to make some decisions, whether they're easy or hard. And a couple comments from time to time I've heard tonight is we don't want to rush into. And to me, this is, whatever other things you consider, this is the last thing I would accuse anyone of on council is rushing. Because it seems to me you've done an awful lot of work already. And, I'm not from Washburn, my husband's family is, and his grandfather was one of the first, goes back a ways, but when I think about honoring the history of Washburn and the gift of the lake, I can't help but think that Haybart would be like, just do it for crying out loud, stop talking about it. There just comes a time when you have to move forward. I would not accuse you of being disruptive. You have put in a lot of time. And I appreciate you listening to all the voices and thinking about the people who don't have a voice. Thank you.
Please state your name.
George Engelhardt, Captain's Bar and Grill, 328 West Bayfield Street. I've been listening here since you started. I really don't have a problem with developing that as long as there's some green space, make it central, where you have to follow it through. But I haven't heard anything concrete. I hear one thing, I'm on the street here, and I didn't get it clarified. When you give TIF money, that you won't receive any tax benefits for 15 or 17 years? Is that correct with you?
City administrator.
When do you start getting a benefit, in other words? The day it's built, if that's 2 or 3 years down the road? Or are you going to wait 15 years
after that? And these people aren't buying the property, I guess.
Nothing has been decided.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying, this whole thing. There's nothing concrete. We pulled a $40,000 figure out of the air.
Well, that's based on what the
But
proposal
all
is.
I'm saying, haven't you spent money with this company to make a proposal
No.
already?
We've not
Or,
spent the cent.
no?
No.
Well,
They've
I
spent all
think,
the money.
I think to be fair, you ought to get some concrete numbers. And maybe you can build partly this on the west end for commercial or the other. And if we want some of your lower income for disability, on the other end, save the middle for some green space. But no matter what you do, before you do anything, you give it away. I think you have to have some solid figures to show people.
And that's why
What Washburn will benefit, not project 40,000. Or as John pointed out, that might only be 16,000. And is it 15 years down the road or immediate?
I can address that question.
Okay.
First, we have not put money besides our own time and effort into this project. This is a private development that has come forward to the city.
Is it a big company?
It is a relatively big, I suppose you could say. They've done numerous developments of this type.
Doesn't sound like they spend any of their money.
So there's a binder on the back there that outlines everything, like who this is, who they are. It's online. So if you want to know more about moving out, it's all spelled out right there. Or I can bring you a copy.
No, bring it.
All right, yeah.
On this first point, we are in a bit of a chicken or the egg situation. They don't want to spend a whole lot of money if we're not serious about doing this. So if we would say that that we're interested in, would want to go forward, they have to start spending money on plans and a specific proposal for the city to consider. Now, addressing the TIF question, it's a little bit difficult because they may come back to us and say, we are requesting city that you give us $200,000 in order for us to do this development. Okay, let's hypothetically say that's what they're asking. We have to decide, does that make sense? So what we have to do is some calculations based on what they're going to build, what their rents are going to be. We've got to get parties involved. We talk to our assessor, we talk to our attorney, and we have to come up with a development plan that says, okay, if we're going to give you $200,000 by the time the district ends, thank you, we want to make sure that we're made whole at the end of the day, okay? Ideally, we would be made whole before the end of the district. That's good for the city. Based on, right. So based on what we think the number is going to be around, we would if it, say that they ask for 200,000 and say based on what Karen had calculated for it, say we get $40,000 a year in taxes, and that generates $60,000 or $600,000 in the remaining life of the district. We get our 200,000 back, plus we have 400,000 that we can then apply to other eligible projects within our district. That being trails, campground, other development projects, whatever it might be. Maybe it's got to be put in towards utilities for this. We don't know yet. Maybe we've got to do something with the power lines. We don't know yet. And so our goal, our mission is to maximize the amount of revenue for the city. We can use those TIF dollars. They start paying taxes like anyone else would pay taxes if you build a house, you build a building for a business. There's no change in any of that.
So it would be immediately when they talk about it.
Correct.
All right, my question is, if they want 4 acres, 5 acres, and they want 200,000 from you, if you charge them 200,000 for the 5 acres, you say you're going to get your 200,000 back once get the TIF money. They're the ones gonna own property. They're the ones that the value is gonna increase. Might be worth $1 million after they're done, I'm sure it is. You're not gonna have any of that. I'm just saying, I gotta watch out for the city money. I've seen some past things that wouldn't want that to happen again.
The price of the land is also negotiable. We know that they will probably ask for it to be at a substantially discounted amount. They might ask for $1.
Hopefully, it won't sell for $1.
So those are all things that have to be weighed and considered. And we have to have a strong agreement that if something happens in the process, we don't,
The bottom line is, if this company is legitimate and they're realize the future and make money on it, they should be willing to spend a little of their money, give you some concrete figures, based on what they want to do, and maybe you got to do it in steps, what you approve them to do. If you want to divide it up, you want to keep the central area for green space. And you know what? If they don't want to build it, then maybe you can take some of that return money and rebuild. It doesn't have to be real big. You know, maybe an acre or so in the middle. Just a thought.
Yes, Mary.
Just to make clear, Wally, I think you have the impression that this is the company that comes in, owns it, builds it, all of that. It's also a company that uses federal tax credits.
Yeah.
So
Well, I got
there's all of
point,
that.
So I mean, they're gonna get TIF money plus federal money.
And they're going to have a local agent run it. They're not going to run it.
Well, the reason why they're doing that is because the reason why they're doing is that because other developers have said the cost of development is too high to produce housing that would be affordable in this market. And that is what our consultant has said. But yes, it's open. If we find a developer who wants to do that, I'm all for it. But we have to have not seen that developer. That's not to say someone may not come. So.
Well, I was just definitely trying to figure.
Okay. Yes, please state your name and address.
Hi, good evening. My name is Wendy Young. I live at 319 West 6th Street and a proud resident of Washburn. I certainly appreciate everything that the council, this council and the council before, has done to investigate as far as RFPs from developers. However, that was done a few years ago. Real estate property, especially lakefront, has substantially risen. And we are sitting on a gold, we are sitting on a gem. That real estate property, which is close to the lake, creating a whole walking experience for the people in Washburn, lodging, dining, shopping, parks, recreation, the walking trail, the marina, swimming in the beaches. We have an absolute gem here. And I echo the statement that Mary McGrath stated about what is the rush about making a decision about the affordable housing right now. I would be willing to serve on a committee to secure new RFPs from developers, and I do know some that are not in the area, but out across the nation, who would probably be interested in possibly helping, and I'm seeing a few eyes go up, but anyways, to develop the property so that it is an enhancement to the city of Washburn. Affordable housing, yes, we can use it, we need it. That is not just the housing dilemma that we at Washburn is experiencing. Washburn experiences people who are moving here and they're working at MMC, and they want to live in Washburn because the school system is great, it's a wonderful little quiet town, but they want to come and live in Washburn and there may not be any housing available for them. We're not just addressing the housing problem for affordable living or people with disabilities. We are addressing a housing problem for people of all ages, all nationalities, all economic backgrounds. We're looking at having housing for many different levels of housing. And again, I'm not against affordable housing, I just don't think that's the location for it. So I just And again, echo the statement about what is the rush. I know that probably the council members are what part of the company with the Omaha contract. But there's a lot of us here who may not have been involved in the past, but are willing to be involved now, and to look into having the opportunity to explore other developers to come and really use that property to our advantage.
Wendy, if you have a name of someone you have in mind for other developers, please forward it to myself and Scott Hoover.
Okay.
We will follow up immediately with that group. We're looking to anyone who is interested.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Carlson?
Can we bring the map back up?
Oh, it got turned off.
Yeah, I am. I closed.
Yeah. So,
Are you speaking on your own behalf tonight, John? Are you representing anyone here this evening?
well, I'm speaking on myself, but I also have to represent, I'll be bluntly honest. So, one of the proposals that you all had for the weekend was to do a land swap. And I don't know if that was forwarded to the council before, but taking the old forestry building right there and giving that to the city in return for land that is southwest of there.
Well, at one time they were talking about the entire, everything else.
No, not the vision. So.
Well, that was what they told me last fall.
Let me grab it.
The email we got sounded like, I
So-
thought it was the whole property.
So this is the old forestry parcel, right?
Yes.
So their proposal was give that to the city in return for the undeveloped property over here.
But to give you more, when you just have a broad swath there, could you just say exactly where?
Well, property line is right there on GIS, but
Okay.
roughly in there. And they would get this over here.
So that including down towards their existing buildings.
Correct.
Okay.
This land up here, the city can develop however you see fit. Whether it's housing, I don't know if that's the best idea or not, but do that swap. And I think that would be a lot more amenable to a lot of people. I mean, there are other options out there. There's, like I said before, there's other land in the city too. So I think the easy decision for the council to make tonight is listen to the people. We got people here, people otherwise. We need to listen to people and other options so that we can have something that works for everyone.
Mr. Carlson, what would be the plan for that swap?
So what they would do
For
is.
the audience that might not have that.
Absolutely. It would be made into a community area. And they have pledged a lot of money to get that done.
That was the 10,000 per year.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Mr. Weinell has said that he would put up funds to put in an amphitheater. I mean, there are lots of options out there.
So it would be public use.
Exactly. For
Development.
the whole community.
Okay.
And, you know, that's one option, one of many options. And that's why I really think what the city should do, just call a timeout. I know that there's a timeline for moving up, but you know what? Your interests are with the city, not for moving up. And if this is a great opportunity for a developer, they will come here in the future as well. So why don't we table this and get scheduled a time when we can discuss this, invite everyone, get their opinions, what they did over in Ashland on the development of their lakefront. Why don't we do that? Why are we in a rush? Why are we wanting 40 units? Where does that number come from?
So I can address that since you brought that up.
Yeah, that's-
Because that's what they say is their study and the study that they have done already says that we need here at Nixon.
Yeah.
Well,
Is that
if you're,
what we want?
well, I don't know if that's what we want. But as a business person, they want to make it economically viable. You wouldn't want to do something that was not economically viable.
Exactly.
So they want to do, because they think they can fill those.
Right, and so, I mean, I think that's a huge number, and I don't think that the city should say, because that's what you demand, that's what we should go with. And Scott, I wonder if you could verify or clarify, after the TIF district, which right now is scheduled to end in 2035, is that correct? It could be extended. So after that, if we receive roughly 40,000 in taxes, what is the city's share? About 45% of the total tax bill, right?
Thereabouts. That's what the difference is today. Can't say what the tax rates and so forth will be another 15 years from now. And then, of course, whenever a district expires, under the current law, which I can't say is going to be in place 15 years from now, 50% of all increment goes to tax relief, and then the rest, so half of it has to go to tax relief, and then half of it can go for general purpose use.
So of the roughly 16,000-ish, what would the city actually be able to use in its spending?
So,
Roughly.
So if it's 40,000, if we get, say, 18 in total, under today's rates, we would get around 9,000 from that development in general use now. Granted, I don't know what the tax rate's going to be in 15 years. Yes. So.
But after 15.
Correct, which is more than we get on a yearly basis.
The other thing is, I don't know where the council's at on this, but when Mr. Porterfield was here, he said, we have to get this property for no or nominal value. If the city council is not going to give it to him, we'll leave him out. So if you're gonna charge him a fair market value for the property, I think the council should be very clear up front.
Hello, Dave Anderson, 617 7th Street West. I don't know if you hear.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Yeah, sorry, Dave. I'd like to start off with a little bit of philosophy. So, I was listening to a lecture in my spare time the other day on the marshmallow test came up. And I don't know if you know what the marshmallow test is, but it's when you give a child one marshmallow and say they can eat it now, you can give them two and say if you wait an hour, you can have these. And basically what it comes down to is that the kids that wait, you can track them over decades, and you can see that they're more affluent, they're in a better place in society and such. And it's because they delayed their gratification. And the reason that we can do this is because we understand time. So we can't really teach time to our pets, right? If we tried the same test on our dog, the dog would snatch up the first biscuit right away, right? Because they don't understand if they wait, they get two. And so this really, because we can understand time, we can understand the future. And when we understand the future, that really kind of is what true intelligence really is understanding the world that exists a year from now or 2 years from now. If we can daydream and wonder, and usually business people have this ability to foresee things in the future. Not, a lot of people do, but usually very successful business people have the ability to see things successfully. And so by accepting, I guess what I'm advocating for is that we just get rid of this thing right here and now. I would like to just see the city move ahead with another idea and not move along with this. Because I really believe taking any portion of that land and using it for any kind of housing, period, is basically taking the first marshmallow. You know, we're eating that marshmallow and walking it. And, you know, I've heard some logic, you know, that no one's done anything yet, no one's ever going to do anything, we should jump on this right now. If you delay, there is a pot of gold. Just like if you delay eating the first marshmallow, you get two. If we delay now and wait, and Mary brought up the tourism that's popping up all over the north country here, there's a pot of gold to obtain. And so that's all I'll say about that. Now, the comp, I'd like to turn your attention to the comprehensive plan, which is out of date, by the way, but I think the city has some obligation to follow, you know, what we do have, and what's out of date. 51.6% of the people surveyed on what they want to do with that specific piece of property don't want any residential on the period. Nothing. Not nothing, but no residential. Right? 51, over half the city agreed that there would be no residential on that property. 24% say commercial development. 27% say mixed commercial. I'm sorry, 34.3% say mixed commercial and public recreation. 27, right. Commercial development is 9.8, mixed recreational, public recreation is 28%. 13% is public recreational development only. 12% say more development development. In the objective 3.1 says use land in a manner that promotes a strong and sustainable economy. So I take that, and you know, I'm not one to mix words, and I'm gonna say some things that are harsh sometimes, and I'll say this. I don't really want to, but there is a stigma that goes along with a development like this, and I'd like to know how many of the other projects that they have around the state that are really honestly mixed people from different economic backgrounds, right? Like the 8 units that are expected to be rented at market value, I really have my doubts on those getting rented out of it. So now they're going to be vacant, and it's probably going to be left to someone that would qualify under my program. And this is where I'm going to seem hard, but this is, I guess, the reality. In any economic development plan in any city nationwide, I cannot imagine a city saying to themselves, what we need to do is invite more poor people into our city. Right? And again, I want to be very clear that I am not against low-income housing whatsoever. I'm not against any other housing development, but this particular piece of land needs to be used for something other than that. And in policy 3.3a, it says ensure public involvement in all significant land use decisions. Right? And this is for this specific piece of land. Relate land use decisions to the needs and desires of the community. Right? And I take that as not this form, I take that as some sort of form other than the city council meeting where people can actually get involved on a Saturday or something. Economic, in the page, section 10-5 of the comprehensive plan says, continue to promote tourism as a means to grow the economy, but also explore other options that produce higher paying jobs. Right? And explore technical innovations that can grow regional economies in a healthy and sustainable manner. So I don't see where those two things tie into this. The Washburn Business Alliance has talked a little bit about some of the things that we could do possibly to get higher paying jobs here. They're basically telecommute jobs. We kind of think that's the future. And doing so, inviting Nevada to have their product brought into our city. So I guess what I'm wondering is, are we building this for the people in Washburn, or are we building this to attract more people to our city? If we're trying to attract more people to the city, which I think is something we absolutely have to do. I don't think this is the way to do it. By simply giving them a house to live in. Not giving them, but having a house available. And I guess I'll just I'll finish with the businesses here have their backs up against the wall. And I guess it sounds like the Washburn businesses are against low-income housing. And at our last meeting, not one person at the table disagreed with it. But not one person at the table thought that any housing should go in that property. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for listening.
I'd like to make a couple of comments, just to clarify some of your statements, Dave. You said in the comprehensive plan, the city voted for various things. I think the more clarification would be those who responded to the comprehensive plan. It wasn't a citywide vote. It wasn't an election. There was a number of people who responded at that time.
To the survey.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the strong economy you mentioned, I guess that would be open to interpretation, whether this would add to strong economy. You're saying no, others might say yes. Posit that as a possibility.
If we're using that, if we're using this housing development, let's say, to let people stay in town, okay, if they're here, basically, here's when you take, everyone here has their money, right? And they circulate the money through town. Your dollar comes to me, it goes to that person, and then it comes back to me. What we need is an influx of new money, right? Tourism, people that drive to a town with a pocket full of cash that want to drop a few bucks here and there. That's what we need. Stale money, stale economy where it's just circulating around in a circle doesn't really do anything. Doesn't do any good. And again, when you attract people to live here that would qualify for that home, are probably not going to be shopping in town, unfortunately, because they can't afford to. They have to go to Walmart and places that have cheaper items. And so I challenge.
About poor people here, probably heard my comments that the study showed that 42% of Bayfield County and 47% of Ashland County are considered low income.
Yes.
So it's not like they're basically, they're your neighbors right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're here.
I mean, comparatively, I guess we're all poor. Probably.
Well, compared to San Francisco, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. As to promote tourism, you're saying that, I mean, you're implying, not saying, you're implying that if we do this, we're not also promoting tourism. This is just a part of the process that is part of the entire city. So I'm not, you can say that this discourages tourism, I mean, that's a valid statement. But it's not saying that this development, the city's not promoting tourism.
The city
The city
should be
should be,
using that property.
okay, well, that's fine,
To
yeah,
promote.
okay, that's fine. Grow the economy, that's open to interpretation, how the economies grow. But I want to get at this, something that's brought up many times tonight, about the Washburn Business Alliance. I didn't even know this thing existed until fairly recently, which is a little bit surprising to my wife and I. You may notice we have a business on Main Street. I didn't even know this thing existed. Maybe perhaps the Business Alliance does not recognize what we do as being a business. That's something you don't think we are a business.
Which we do. And
So, but we have never been invited. My wife and I have business owners of more than 25 years. And let me finish. Have not been even informed that this thing exists. Yet we're a business, and yet many might say we're a somewhat profitable business because 2 years ago we added a large addition, which I think you might recall you worked on. So I would say you might view us as being a successful business in town, but yet I didn't even know this business alliance existed.
It didn't.
But since then, no one's invited you.
Right, there's a lot of people that haven't been invited.
So
Not because we're trying to exclude anybody.
Well, you've self-selected your group.
No, we just
Yes,
haven't
you
gotten,
have.
we just haven't gotten to everybody yet, honestly. It started with 3 or 4 people.
I look forward to the invitation.
Okay, you've got one.
March 21st, 5:30.
Okay.
And where is that?
Now that's the Harborview.
Each member, so we started off with 3 or 4 people. Each person was responsible for inviting 1 or 2 people, and we haven't gotten around it. So,
All right, that's all I have to say.
Can I, actually, you said the email, which I really appreciate it.
the harshness.
Yeah, at the start, you can get in there, you can actually, I mean, you make a really good point. I think that is kind of where this line is, as far as we use this for tourism or for residents, right? And that's the thing, right? So I just want everyone to know where I'm standing is I'm really trying to fill a need of our by at least exploring what this might look like. And I totally get where people are coming from. This is a really valuable piece of land everyone. But there is a need, and you're kind of asking us to ignore that need and wait. And I mean, again, so is there a direct line from tourism to housing? Probably not. So it is going to be, John said, this is an easy decision. It's like, exactly. That would be the easiest decision. We would just sit here and again, just kind of kick the hand down the road and say, okay. But it's really hard to ignore those needs. That's what I wanted to say. I think, I appreciate your comments and your passion for this. But,
So I guess nobody other than anybody here sitting at the table has said that we actually do have a need. I'm not arguing that we don't or we do.
Okay.
Where's the documentation that says this is what we have, this is the need that we have?
That was actually the study. It says that there's a need for 40 unit housing. And I know this is a little anecdotal, but it's from residents that come to me and say it's really hard to rent, it's super expensive to rent. It's hard to find housing here. I know, again, anecdotally, but professionals that would like to live here, there's nowhere for them. So they end up living in Ashland. Why? Because there's more killing. It's not that
They couldn't live in this
Exactly.
housing need. That's what I'm struggling with. What
Okay.
you're talking about
Right.
with these people, this
Why
housing, this
wouldn't
specific
There are
development.
6 units that are absolutely at market. And here's the other thing is, as soon, and this was presented, as soon as you start alleviating the stress on all of that other housing in town, it opens up housing in those other rental units, right? So I do think that, it does even out, but But that's, I mean, so whether you find that important or not, I get it.
So
But
I saw some numbers on the amount that people will possibly pay for an apartment. And it is above what they already do pay here. And so I would argue there's more money for my wife and I to be made on our little one bedroom apartment above her shop. So if this goes through, we're probably gonna raise the rent. And I don't, and otherwise it could go to somebody that, would pay what we ask now. And that might be something that snowballs amongst all of them. If other apartments find that they can get more money if they're getting it down there, then, then you might see an increase in everyone across the board.
But, it may not.
Okay. Thank you.
And Dave, I appreciate the civility of your comments. If you don't mind, this is our second to last meeting with several of our council members. Because they're not running for re-election. And John, we haven't heard from you at all tonight. Everyone else has spoken up. I don't know if you have any comments you'd like to make.
I agree with Jen and Mary. This piece of land is not a piece of land to be used for public housing, low-income housing. And it was been said many times around this table that nobody else has been interested. We have a successful business in Washburn who is interested in this land. They've already invested a lot of money in Washburn. And why is council not willing to negotiate with them? Who is that? The Washburn Hotel.
They just sent it this weekend.
Oh, no. I said that to you and Scott before.
And we said to you to bring forward a proposal, which you guys never have.
And we keep
You
hearing
never
that
have.
Moving Out doesn't have a proposal. We keep hearing
They
out
put
there
something
that
on
time and
paper,
time
though.
again tonight.
Okay.
Are we still in the public comment?
Yes,
Mhm.
anyone can
Yes.
speak. Anyone who wants to come
Anyone
forward and
else for
speak.
public comment?
Roth, okay. Well, we'll let Roth, because he hasn't spoken, now you have.
Real quick. First of all, Washington Business Alliance, we've had 3 meetings, okay? First meeting, we had maybe half a dozen people in January. Second meeting, we probably had a dozen people. Last meeting, we probably had 20 people. We're building. And we're adding more and more members as we go. We're not focused just on this. Okay? We're looking at everything that we can possibly do to increase the economic vitality of the state. So that's going to include hopefully petitioning the city to get rid of the scenic byways so that we can get signs up. Something that Scott and I talked about. The other point I want to make is you and I, Scott, and I, and you met and we talked about a land swap. Mr. Mulberg was on the phone. We talked about that before, and apparently it was brought to the city council. So we've talked about that before. The city council hasn't heard of this before?
We were waiting for a proposal.
I got an email from Jeff this week that proposed it.
What about the conversation that we had before and that was brought to the city and the city wasn't interested? What happened to that?
2 meetings ago, we discussed development proposals in closed session. It was decided not to
It
go
wasn't a
forward.
deal. It wasn't.
So if you wanted to,
But to be fair, we had absolutely zero information on it, the fact of changing one parcel of land for a bunch of parcel of land. So, I mean, we're comparing apples to oranges here, so we had no information.
so if there was a more request for what would you do with it, you could fill in some blanks, but I mean, my goodness, I mean, there are other proposals that are out there, and we can work, if there's some aspect that this proposal doesn't like, then let's talk about it.
Bring forward a proposal, that's what you keep saying repeatedly.
I'll resend it.
I'm Ross Edwards, and I have been one of those ones who, for some 16 years, has been an advocate of our comprehensive plan and for Smart Growth. think we need a smarter smart growth. And I agree with Dave that the comprehensive plan has become outdated. Also that it is weak in the area of economic development. When we look at Washburn, we can't really get around comparing it to Bayfield and as from a graph brought up earlier, places at Duluth. And there's a concept I want to tie in here that Dave also brought up, regional tourism. So when we talk about the subjects of business and economic development, first of all, I'm just thankful that we're having the conversation. Because there was a time in this city when if some people in this city had not been as forceful as they were, and as quote unquote perhaps even uncompromising. Now when I say that, I also say I believe that there are good compromises as well as bad compromises. And I think everybody can agree with that. Compromising itself isn't the one priority in the city. But that's what we're looking for nonetheless is as I was speaking about last meeting, points of agreement that we can build upon. But when we do talk about Washington, we do have to talk about Bayfield and other towns in this region. But when we talk about Washburn, I do believe that we have to talk about what Washburn doesn't have, as well as what it does have. I'm going back to my roots as an environmentalist here. How my training is in business administration. And this is what I'm pursuing now, a master's degree in this field. I'd like to take part, so thank you for the information on this upcoming meeting on the business alliance. When we talk about Washington, we have to talk about what it doesn't have. What doesn't it have? It doesn't have a lot of touristic development. Okay, good. So we do not want the kind of typical touristic development that you think of when you think of tourism. We want to be Washington. We don't want to compete with Bayfield. We want to compete to be unique. And to borrow from business strategist Michael Porter. So when we as we pursue this discussion, I think what we really are looking for here is a framework within which to have this discussion. Because what we have, as one council pointed out, is we have a lot of expertise in this community. We can write a economic development plan. And this would, I would think, would be the agenda of a business consortium. We get to write such a plan within the context of which we can then analyze these proposals as they do come up. Otherwise, by what context are we really looking at a proposal such as the one by moving out? As I read in the newspaper, perhaps one proposal is as good as the next. But if we put it within a framework, then we'll start seeing a clear direction in the city, which we can, from that framework, I believe that we can establish a true consensus, and this has really been the drive of my work for 16 years, is to establish such a consensus, because I do think that Washington has a potential that's larger than untapped. And just a few points to wrap up. A few key words. We do have this increasingly rare resource that is Lake Superior. But regarding tourism, I'll end with this note. I think what we really have to do is look at addressing this disconnect that does exist between our perceptions, people's perceptions of tourism, and its actual indicators. Tourism is a major industry. It could be that very industry we're looking for to galvanize business and economic development in this town. Thanks again for your time. And I look forward to further discussions on March 21st.
Anyone else like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Seth Foster, Fulton Road. Just a quick clarifying question. Somebody mentioned the possibility of putting housing in the property next to Coco's broke down. Is that something that?
There are some developers who have approached the city who have an interest that maybe they want to develop it with apartments upstairs and retail downstairs. Moving Out has said it's possible put that building into the mix of upstairs would be residential, although they don't have a lot of experience with them developing retail, they say it's not out of the question, but that's all open to discussion.
Do you have any idea how many units they thought they could put in there?
It's up to whoever developed it, but the previous developer had suggested not moving out, who was considering the property, a private developer, putting 5 units upstairs. And in their scenario, there'd be 2 retail spaces downstairs and perhaps 1 residential space downstairs in the back part. But it's open to any possibility. As the city ordinances now state, you could not put residential on the first floor.
And one other question, I'm a big fan of affordable housing. My mother lives in town in affordable housing. But it seems like we have a lot of space for that. There's a place by the elementary school, and there's a couple of places for older people to live. And I'm just wondering if anyone knows, like, per capita, what does it look like in Washburn for like kind of the affordable, like, fixed income housing they have for people compared to the population of the city? Because this is not a big city.
I'm sorry, not clear, are you referring to spaces that are empty for affordable housing or that affordable housing that's already existing?
That's existing, that's available
So
to people,
you're
like
referring to
compared to
perhaps the housing authority buildings? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
And maybe that's different than what you're talking about with what's moving.
It is. Just to be clear, Karen Novacek sits on the Housing Authority Board. I sit on the Housing Authority Board. So we're somewhat knowledgeable about the Housing Authority. This has been brought up many times. There are no units available in the Washburn buildings. Now, Washburn, it's a kind of odd thing. The Housing Authority is made up of the city of Washburn and the county of Bayfield. One of the structures that is part of the Housing Authority belongs to the county of Bayfield, not the city of Washburn. That was used to be in the county. We may have an occasional vacancy, but there's a long waiting list.
No, yeah, I know that. I'm curious how many, not units are empty, but how many units are there in Washburn?
I'm not sure. Exactly.
And then how does this affordable housing, is it just like supplemental rent, or is it just like
Housing Authority?
Moving out is proposing. If it's not Housing Authority.
The Housing Authority units are for a lower income strata than the moving out project.
So is it just kind of like subsidized?
Well, subsidized in the way that the rents would be lower than what they call lower. Some people say they are not lower, but that's whatever, lower. And the people who go in there at the lowest rates, more than likely from moving out experience, they say those people would generally be on SSI or disability. So if you consider that subsidized, then I would say, yeah, wage and some of the, they don't have the money's not coming out of their pocket directly.
Right.
They're getting it from some other method.
Or is that coming from HUD?
Not from who?
From HUD or?
I don't know.
I wonder, last meeting, or whenever it was that we talked about the moving out proposal, that last meeting before, there was a nice chart that showed what the rent is at certain points. And that there were 3 tiers,
Yeah,
and then you reach the full income.
For this specific?
Well, it's largely guided by their need to get the low income tax credit financing for the project. And other people who are not in that kind of building project don't see enough potential in what really to, because it was all given. And that's another reason why that location is so attractive, is because you get extra credit, you get extra points on the low income tax credit applications if you're within a mile of various cities. And those low income tax credit applications, it's kind of like going for a grant in that it's not a sure thing. Many more organizations are denied than you see. It's very, very.
Seth, to answer your question, our city attorney handed me a document In Washburn, the City of Washburn Housing Authority manages 36 units, which would be in your description, of which 24 are basically apartments and 12 are scattered site single houses, meaning those other units over there. In addition to that, Bayfield County owns a structure which I believe is 12 units. I could be incorrect on that. It might be 14. It might be, but it's around there. That's the one in the city of Washburn owned by Bayfield County.
Thank you.
And as for the spaces in existing buildings, if developers want to improve those for apartments, great, wonderful. I do want to add that it has been brought up. Everything is open and there's no discussion, and there's no discussions occurring right now because we haven't moved forward at all. And we don't know the details, but from my understanding, to be honest, it is my belief that unless the city is willing to sell this property or convey it to move it out at less than market rate, and I don't know what market rate is for that property, I don't know that answer, that this is probably not a viable project. It's based on a number of different things, and I believe less than market rate. Now, what is that number between market rate and zero? I don't know. But if the city council believes it should be sold at market rate, I don't believe this is a viable project.
And I think that was pretty clear during this presentation in January. And also that you would be most likely
Could you
asking.
speak up?
Oh, I was gonna say that was pretty clear at our meeting in January, and also the fact that they would be asking for a certain amount of funds from the city to contribute to this project too. On top of that. I mean, that was, to me, pretty clear in January.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes. Please step forward and state your name and address.
So I'm Jeff Silver from 410 Fifth Avenue East. I've missed most of the areas in the county forestry meetings. I am not going to say anything about the appropriateness of housing at this location. In the business wise, if we can't get a consensus to put something we all agree on there, I don't want to make a big fight about that. The only thing I really want to comment is I am a low income person. And I would like, and also in my dealings on Bayfield County Economic Development Corporation and working at the nursing home board, I see that there is a need for housing in Washington. And I think eventually it doesn't need to go there. I'm not encouraging it to go there in that spot. But we do have a responsibility to provide adequate housing for people in the community. I appreciate Aaron's words, that there is a need for it. And what the people I speak to, the aging and disability officers, there is a definite need for housing at all levels, but for working low-income people. Most of us work, some of us are getting regularly, like you, work not very long. But there is a need for housing, and if you don't see that, you're not looking well. It's not about putting it there on Omaha Street property, but we need housing in this community. And we have a responsibility. The business people are dear friends of mine, and I care for them. They have an alliance. The poor people, the low-income people don't have an alliance working for them. So eventually, I would like the city council to address the housing issue in our community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to close the floor?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is closed. I appreciate everyone's comments and I appreciate the civility and the keeping on topic. Council, it's your turn.
Well, for me, I can say honestly, as a council member, I always look for the greater good. I like to look into the future. I do believe that there's a housing need. I mean, I would be willing to sit down and look at different aspects. Once again, the issue that I have is the time frame in which we're talking about. So I feel like I am not willing to move forward in this particular direction right now because I feel like we're saying, hey, we're willing to do this, and I don't want to string them along. But in the same aspect, I'm completely willing to sit down and look at like that West End and work with our community and the business people and kind of have that and like come up with a plan together versus us doing it in this arena under this time frame. That's where I'm at.
Is that a motion?
Can I make that?
Yeah, you can do whatever you like. The
And,
councilman.
and before you make a motion, Jen, and you believe that there are developers that we could attract that would be interested in coming in and developing housing for a broad array of people within our community.
I believe that we might come back and yes, there could be. And then I also believe we're open and honest with moving out and saying like, yeah, we are willing, but we're not willing under this time frame. I can't imagine them not saying that they wouldn't be willing to work with us again in 3 years to put together a packet that has our community support.
But it would be 3 years.
Well, that's what,
exactly.
I mean,
Well,
we're throwing out numbers here,
yeah.
but I think, to make this time frame for this grant is, we're talking now.
Right.
But otherwise than that.
And their
I mean,
cycle is 2 years, so it would be
and a
2 or
community
2.5.
process to do something like this would take some time. And
It
so
would take some
it
time.
would take some time.
But
So,
how many times has Mulan's been here before, I think, not when I was on the council.
well, and as I stated earlier, I feel like we probably dropped the ball because I feel like last time we all kind of walked away and we did nothing.
This time we would.
And this time I feel like if we really truly want to actually, so that we don't keep making proposals for that property and not willing to do something with them, I think we need to have a community involvement to figure that out so that we know when we get proposals, because it's not going to be any better. If we get a proposal tomorrow for taking that whole Omaha Street for high-end housing, I'm going to be sitting here saying the exact same thing because I don't know. So that's what I would propose.
So,
And it takes time, and I'm willing to do the time for something like this. Okay.
if you'd like to make a motion. Sure.
Dan, did you capture that? Yeah.
What is your motion?
Yes,
To.
Oh, let her say your
So,
motion.
I mean, my motion would be to respond back to moving out and tell them that, yes, in the future, we would be willing to work with them. But at this time, we need to do some community visioning to determine really what we want to do with that property and start to address our housing.
If I could maybe
Simplify it.
say that at this time, we do not want to move forward with moving out proposal, but in the future, that you're open to consideration. Is that a shorter version that accurately portrayed your?
Yes.
I don't want to word you out.
No, I mean, and that's essentially what I'm saying. Not with this specific proposal at this time for this grant cycle.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Yes, Aaron. It's Scott.
If I could just get any clarification. Okay, I understand that we're not gonna move, the motion would be not to go forward with moving out at this time. But are you providing any specific direction to us as to how, are you asking us to do planning, to redo comprehensive plan, to do anything specific is what I'm digging at here.
Digging at?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the council should have a discussion on that, but I mean, I feel that, yes, I feel like, I mean, depending on how the council feels in terms of moving forward with city staff time and energy, I don't think we need to do a whole comprehensive, but I would have like more of kind of a visioning type thing like we did for West End Park, specifically for this piece of property.
Only council or the residents of the city?
I would say similar to what we did for West End Park.
I would
With
like to know what
residents-
that
with
was.
the
I wasn't
residents.
on the
Oh,
council
you know,
then.
with more of a community-based involvement, may that be a committee that heads it up, like
This
we
was
kind of
about 8
said.
years ago.
With West End Park, we
Okay.
had a committee that actually did it. Jeremy was part of that committee. So we kind of, and I feel like we have some folks in our community, a lot of people that have showed up at
Yeah.
these meetings and the Business Alliance. that would
Thank
be
you for
willing
that
to do that.
clarification. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, Aaron.
I mean, we asked them to go this summer, they came a couple years ago, and it's been 2 years. And we have the same needs, the same, I mean, if we say no again, I mean, this was the one applicant, you know? I'm really worried about saying no again, you know, I mean, if I was moving out, there's no way I'd come back to this community.
I don't think they want to work with a community that's not ready either. So there's two aspects to that. I'm agreeing with you, Aaron. I think that there's pros and cons to this, but my only response to that is if I was a developer coming into this community, I'd want the support of our local business people that are adjacent to it.
He said as much. They don't want to come into a community that doesn't want it.
It's not ready. If it takes us 3 years to get ready, if it comes out at the end 3 years and we're in the same place with community support and more understanding of exactly what we want, is that time well spent? I think there's pros and cons, but that was my motion.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Just that I, you know, having been here for a few years now, haven't seen an opportunity like this come along. They're not asking for the entire piece of property. They're asking for a portion of it for what I also see as a real need in our community. So regardless of what happens here, I believe we should do some visioning with what is in that, you know, going to be possibly left in that spot to decide what we like. So so there you go. And you know, how long do we want to wait? I mean, 2 years ago, that marshmallow was there, and we waited, and nothing happened. So now the marshmallow's back.
I just want to, it's not that we didn't do anything. At that time, two council members were adamant that they'd like to see more outreach, which Dan did quite a bit of. And we had essentially moving out, and another company from Madison was thinking of doing commercial there. But when they looked it over, they decided that was not viable for them.
Yes, it wasn't so much that we didn't do anything, but that we did not want to move forward at that time with moving a proposal.
Correct.
That's really what it was. There
But we
wasn't
didn't
enough
take, we didn't
support in
take
the
a vote
council.
on that.
So did we table?
Tabled it.
So that's why tonight I want a vote. I want a clear decision whether if you think this is not a good fit, okay. Let's move on.
And I think for me, 2 years ago, it was because it was strictly residential. And I was hoping to do like a mixed-use commercial with, you know, artist loft, with residential on top, different kind of things. And, you know, so I wasn't really excited years ago. And like, I guess when I say we didn't do anything, from there, we didn't do any more visioning for like what we're willing to kind of look at. So that's what I mean, like, we kind of went back out to like just more like residential, which I think we were all like, when we got that, it was myself and other folks that I talked to, it was like, yeah. You know, we had some discussions like, well, if you start with residential, then is it going to spring up some other things? You know, so like, where do you put the, residential? Try to, start to promote other growth.
Well,
in other
last time
arenas.
all we had was a 24 unit project. Anyway, never mind, let's just move on. Should we call for a vote?
Unless
Have a
if
vote.
people, well, if people have what comments to make, I'd like to hear council have comments before we vote.
I'm great with moving forward this way, unless, and we really have had an outcry on both sides here, so I think we need to engage the community, and I think.
Okay. Any other comments? Before we vote, I'm going to request, since this is a very charged issue, that it would be a roll call vote. So people know where everyone stands. I believe
Thank
that
you.
council members should be on the record for what they believe in. It's not going to be a voice vote, it'll be a roll call vote. If you don't mind, I'll start on that end.
Yeah, I'm just
Linda.
saying, I'm torn both ways, but I will vote with not continuing with moving on because I don't want to leave them on
So you're a no
and then
vote.
dump them at the altar.
No,
That'd be a yay.
Oh, sorry, that's, oh, so yes is saying you do not want to move forward. No means you want to. It's kind of reversed. I'm sorry, I missed it.
Well, just, yeah, it's just not fair to the.
Yes means stop. Okay. John?
Yes.
Thank you. Jen?
Yes.
Okay. Jeremy?
No.
No. Okay. Mary?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Aaron? Oh, sorry, Karen?
No.
Aaron?
No.
So we have 1, 2, 3 no's and 4 yeses. Means we are not going forward with moving out the proposal at this time. Thank you very much. It's been a very difficult conversation and issue.
Mr. Mayor,
Brought, yes.
I would like to make a motion in kind of following up what Jen was saying. I think we need an outside facilitator, and I think we need more than one visioning session. I think we need 3 or 4 visioning sessions starting at 4 in the afternoon so that residents that are working can be there. And, you know, come with, we'll have a flip chart and an outside facilitator and come with every idea that we can ever think of. And let's move forward with some concrete suggestions and plans for that property, whether it's to do a trade, whether it's to put it back on the market, well, it's on the market to sell, whether someone has other developers throughout the region or nationwide that might want to come in, but let's be proactive. We kind of kicked the can down the road again. Let's do something this time. So I would move that we have up to 3 facilitated sessions, that we have an outside facilitator, and that we open it to the community for any and all ideas.
Except that's not on tonight's agenda. That'll be on the next city council agenda.
Attorney, can't I get that in?
No, not that much.
So I personally think that's a good idea, but that'll be on the next city council agenda.
To be honest,
To put it on the next.
keep me honest, audience. We'll do it.
Which will be the last meeting for several council members. So, the next item on our agenda tonight, don't all leave, we still have exciting things to go. This was a big item in the newspaper, discussion and action on the concept of establishing an ordinance to address sex offender residency restrictions.
I was called by a TV station in Duluth, or a radio station, a news reporter called me about it.
Really?
Because I'm Linda Barnes, I'm at the top of the list. And I answered the phone. So he didn't call you guys?
No.
No, but I watched the news clip on it tonight.
Was it on the
quote
news
me?
today?
He did not quote you, so it was on the 5 o'clock news today.
So I'll kick this over to our city attorney. So you can walk us through this. This is a legal matter.
Currently, Washburn, we don't have any ordinance limiting where registered sex offenders can reside. I think this draft ordinance is presented to us by ordinance codifier. They kind of presented some updates as far as being consistent with a recent Court of Appeals case that struck down a sex offender registry ordinance in Wisconsin.
Can you just clarify again? This came to us from who?
Came to us from the person who keeps our code book organized.
Okay.
We get updates periodically.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was just,
He's a codifier, but you really should call him a codifier. Because he keeps the code book.
Whoa.
tomato, yes.
He's a codifier.
I don't believe he keeps cod. I don't think he keeps cod.
So this proposed ordinance is not something that we would have specifically, but more of a starting point. From a legal standpoint, I don't think there's any issue that would get the city in trouble by not having an ordinance like this. These types of ordinances are hotspots for litigation against the city. You can't effectively make it so that registered sex offenders cannot live in your city. So in Washburn, if you say they can't live within 1,000 feet of a school or a park, they can't live anywhere. You got to look at it specifically, see where it would preclude people from living. Another issue that comes up that I see on this is a vast majority of people on the registered sex offender list are not pedophiles and rapists. Vast majority of them are people who went streaking, I think the largest percentage of them are people who were 19 or 20-year-olds who had a relationship with a minor. Those people are on the registered sex offender list if they get convicted of statutory event. Not saying that's good, but when people hear the term registered sex offender, they think pedophile, they think rapist. In reality, most of the people are not dangerous like that. Those are the main issues that I wanted to point out as far as, and then one other one that this draft ordinance had is placing the requirement of potential penalties on landlords for renting to individuals who are on the sex offender registry. As far as I have found in research, that issue has not been litigated, but it is illegal for a landlord to discriminate against people on the basis of their sex registry. It is, and on the basis of their conviction, they have been convicted of a crime. This probably would be okay if it's a city ordinance saying one way or the other, and it's limited in the scope as to what that limitation would be. However, it is just like I said, these sex offender registries are kind of hotbeds for litigation in cities. So it's up to you guys to determine whether you think this is a problem that we need to do something about. And if you do think it is a problem we need to do something about, then we craft an ordinance that would work and would be effective and would limit the potential liability for the city.
Just to comment, in my experience, I have been approached by people concerned by registered sex offenders living very close to our school. Whether you think that's good, bad, or other, you decide.
And again, there's the registered sex offender list does not have any tiers. It's anyone who's been convicted of what the federal government deems as sex offense is on the registered sex offender list.
Just so you know, if you look at the sex offender list, if it's online, we do currently have a number of sex
I
offenders.
actually get updates through some thing
Yes.
I'm on. Very odd.
But it is a wide span in terms of potential offenses that have occurred
Yes.
under that umbrella of sex offense.
I will say one of the things that in a presentation tonight on the KDVR, they interviewed, and that's why I was going to ask if Ken, if our police department looked at this. Because one of the things that was noted in City of Superior was that sometimes if you do these kind of more restrictions you do, often they will reside in a different, they'll actually register where they're living here and then they'll actually live somewhere else. It's difficult to track them. So one of the questions I was going to have was, in the City of Superior, for example, the police department said that they have regular contact with all 70 or whatever they have registered there. So I was going to ask our police department what if they have regular contact and what their thought would be on. The thought is the more restrictions you do, the actually harder it is to track them. I thought that was kind of interesting.
A number of years ago, when this was brought up to me, when I was city council member, I did speak with Chief Johnson. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I said, "Are you aware of these alleged sex offenders living close to the school?" And he said, "The police are this is a small town. The police pretty much know everyone in town and sort of what they're up to and who's who, and they know who's where." And I mentioned someone by name where that person came up directly and said, "This person's now living right across from the school. How can you allow them to do that?" And we were aware of it, and he said by law that is, they know it's happening.
Because we had nothing. Right. So that's the only negative thing that came up.
Yeah, because we had nothing at that time. So if you wanted to start making restrictions, you could do that. There's a hand up in the audience. I don't know if you want to open up the floor.
Maybe once we all get a chance.
Okay. You don't mind waiting? Just wait a minute, wait. They want to.
So there's a possibility the city might have a little liability if we don't have something in place.
No possibility there. City, I don't see any legal liability to the city if you don't have a restriction. So status quo, no, there's nothing that is presenting legal liability.
Nick, go ahead. Aaron, you want to speak?
But there's a difficulty in having parameters around it based on the size of the town and where
It just, this one that's in here as an example could not just be adopted as is. Yes, it has to be carefully tailored to what the city actually has.
There has to be a place in the city for them to live, more than just one little block.
And one concern I had about the sample ordinance was it said within 500 feet. And 500 feet isn't very much distance. And then also, right, it's not very far. And then also in a city as small as Washburn, even if I live more than 500 feet, nothing's a very far walk. I mean, if someone wants to bother little children, they could live at the other end of town, and it's still not a 2-mile walk to the elementary school. So I don't really see how this is controllable in such a small area. I mean, that this is applicable in such a small area.
To give some context to that, a standard size city block, the length of it is 400 feet. So it would be
More than a block.
so if you add both streets on both ends, you're talking about 500.
You can't live across the street.
Right now you can.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
I'm making a motion that we open the floor.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? John, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just two things. One is, this town is really small, and our police department is very good. And they could definitely keep track of where they are and who these people are. If we start closing off certain areas in this town, and I'm on the planning commission, so let's just say an individual comes in one of these open areas where these people can live and wants to put a babysitting business or daycare, or whatever, what do? Are we gonna say no because this individual is there and not let them have a business in town? I think it brings up way too many issues.
If I could try to answer that, I think according to the ordinance that they would be grandfathered in. So you know, if somebody wanted to put something that was restricted on that block, they still could. We would allow. You may not want to, I mean, but like you could, they would force that person to leave and you would be able to put that business there.
That's all I've got. You close the floor. Just you had a long movie.
We're just getting our stride.
Yeah, we got pieces of somebody ordered this pizza, right?
Ricky, does anyone else want to speak? We're going to close the floor and move forward. No one else. Okay, is there a motion to close the floor?
Yes.
Second. First, okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So my first thought, I was kind of going where John was going a little bit, like, are we going to restrict places where people would move? And but I came back around if there was think of a couple, 2 or 3 nursing or daycares in town to have somebody with this criminal record moving in right next door would be weird. So I could see the benefit for this, for that kind of thing.
So are you making a motion to have staff develop an ordinance?
Nope, that is my part of the discussion. I'd like to hear what other staff have to say.
Okay.
And I'd like to know what the police department thinks about this. I mean, what they would recommend. I mean, if they don't think it's an issue, are we making an
Maybe
issue
too
out
hard
of
to
something?
regulate. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd
So
like
we
to hear
could
that.
bring it to them, and then if they could send an email to all of you, would that be acceptable?
Yes, I would
Their
appreciate that.
opinion?
Yeah, because I don't want to make an issue out of something
Because
that's not.
they're truly in Superior, the police department said don't do it.
Well, no, they were just talking about the pros and cons of it, and one of the things where they were just saying if you restrict it, they'll sometimes register so that they look like they don't live, and then they'll go live somewhere else, and I'm tracking them. That was all they said. It wasn't a big deal, but I was saying, like, I would just be interested in our police departments.
Well, we have the benefit of having a law enforcement officer sitting on our board. John, do you have any opinions on this?
especially in small towns, the police department, you know, the residents and keep an eye on them.
And my first impression was, oh, hell yes, restrict them. But then if you sit back and think about the city and all the overlaps and all the territories and the parks and the, like.
Well, realistically, as was mentioned, you could do all the restrictions you want. And not to bad about the communities, but they could be Barksdale or town of Washburn. It's not that far.
I think that there's a register available to the public in general.
Yep.
Which,
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's kind of my point, is that do we want to put some protections in place if you run a daycare and someone who's on the list moves in right next to you, everybody's gonna know, are you gonna, what's that gonna do to that business? That bit, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where I like, that's.
That might be one
Per-
place. Yeah, I can see
But if someone's living there, someone on the sex offender registry, and then the daycare, I think there's a job, but the daycare decides to move in next door, who has the right? When you tell the sex offender you must move, you can't do that.
Right, and I believe it's stated in here that they're grandfathered in that.
So, yeah, so.
But it would give the reversal protection.
Right.
To the
So a
business.
current daycare provider, a sex offender could not move in with a
Wouldn't
certain
be
parameter
penalized.
that particular place. So it could give the opposite help.
And I mean, and we could make our own parameters next door, 2 doors away or another, distance. So I agree. I think hearing from the police department is a good idea, but I guess that's the only scenario where it seems like it might be.
Yeah, let's hear from them and then maybe bring it back to council and then we can kind of ponder and think about, I do think that daycare and then and also, the only other place I could think of is the school. But school.
But then you have the library where kids are
Parks
after
and the
school
parks, yeah.
and the skating rink and, I mean,
Trails.
Yeah.
you can expand
Ball
it.
field, yeah, it's just like that,
Yeah.
it's just one after the other, and it's gonna be a whole lot of overlap in this.
And if they're speaking as an older, people will not be able to live in places.
But I think that's another thing that we could do is looking at this list of offenses that's on page 135. So it's crimes against children. There's a whole list there. We could also pare that down so that scenario isn't restricted. And just one other just kind of interesting part about this is that if there is a question about someone being grandfathered in or not, that would go to the planning commission. It's just like, wow. I just interesting. Like I'm on the
Miss
planning
out
commission.
on it. After
No,
next month, you're not.
right. I just think that's an interesting, that would be just another angle to the planning commission that I would.
Christina, do you need a motion that we refer this to the police first and further?
Well, what I'm hearing is that
Or
you
can we
would like
just
to
suggest
table it. I'm hearing that you would like to table it until we have further information
I would
at a
say
later meeting.
that we table this item until we have more information from the police department and more information from our attorney.
At the first available meeting.
That's my motion.
That's your, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next.
Question, Scott, do you present all of these to us or just ones that you think we would be interested in? I just don't know how often this comes up, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I appreciate like maybe you filtering out things that we don't need to discuss.
I do not present all of them, I've got, again, I think we got another 3 or 4 of them that have come in.
From the codifier?
Yes, and some of them just aren't, I review them with the attorney or the relevant staff to see if is there a strong desire to go forward. This one, since it's a important topic, and we didn't have anything, we thought it was worthy of discussion.
Yeah.
A lot of them have to do with facilities or entities or operations that Washburn is going to do. So that's no applicability to us.
Thank you for filtering that for us.
We were hoping for some FaceTime from Linda on TV. I said we're hoping for some FaceTime.
Look at some
from
follow-up.
TV.
Yeah, find out what we did.
Barnes takes no stand.
We are on bartender license application number 20-53 and 54.
That's always my job.
Yes.
Second to the last meeting. So I hereby move that we accept bartender licenses, number 20, number
20-53 and 54.
20-5354.
Correct.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. And
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into closed session to take up a personnel matter.
I think you have to state, you compensate statute.
Consideration of compensation for the city treasurer position.
But we have to, it's.
Per
purchase pursuant to
Wisconsin
Wisconsin.
State Statute 19.85, bracket 1, bracket C, bracket,
For personnel matters for employment or in the.
which I already said.
We
And I'll
may,
second that.
we may reconvene in open session.
Oh, and we may reconvene in open session to take any action that may be necessary on the closed session items.
That used to be my
You've got to
job.
tutor her better.
I know, that used to be my job, so I was pretty good at it.
At 8:33,
Okay.
My
All in
estimate
favor,
was
just a roll
8:30.
call vote, please, roll call.
Barnes,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Matthias,
Yes.
McGrath.
Yes.
Belichick.
yes.
Oswald.
Yes.
We will take a 2-minute break,
Oh, lots of emails. So glad.
and you must clear the audience. Thank you very much. These are the hardcore, look at that, they sit the whole time.
You didn't clear that last motion.
Oh,
Hardcore.
I don't think we had it.
Okay. I thought I saw something.
That's clearly the